happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Hope you guys are all doing well. Hope you guys have all had a great week. Welcome in, everyone. We are having ourselves another history stream. We are back with another episode of Hieroglyphs in Histories. I think I got that right. Hieroglyphics in Histories, my mistake. And this week, our guest is Yariko-san. This is likely a part one of either a part two, part three, shit, maybe even a part four series. We will find out soon enough. Depends on how long or how much we can get through in these short 3 hours tonight and next week. But thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out. I hope you guys have had a great night, great day, and I hope you guys are excited to learn a little bit about the history of the Yucatan from Yariko, who did an amazing PowerPoint. Yariko, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hello guys, I'm Yariko, underscore San on twitch.tv. I'm a dark elf VTuber.
We like
I
those.
was, yeah. We do the whipping really well. Anyway, I'm Mexican. Surprise.
Shock.
Shocker,
Oh,
I know, right? Yeah, and I live in northern Mexico, but I grew up in the Yucatan Peninsula in a state known as Campeche.
Campeche.
Yeah.
Sick.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I have, if you have not been here for Hieroglyphics and Histories before, I have a host of questions that I prepared for Yariko. I believe last week we did a stream with Siri VT on culinary history. That VOD is up, I believe, still on Twitch. But it's definitely up on the YouTube channel. So if you want to check that out, please feel free to. We had a great time. There was no formal presentation, but we had an amazing time regardless. And I think we talked a lot about food, obviously being culinary history, but that's something that's going to be very important tonight as well, from what I can tell, if I'm not wrong, Yari.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, I do be a chef too, so I can talk about food and
Oh,
different
yeah.
types of food in Mexico and stuff. So yeah.
There you go. There you go. Also, I'm going to get out of the way real quick because I want to show this off. Holy shit. I didn't even realize this until, like, you showed me this presentation. Hold on. Dude, what is up with the Made in Mexico stamp on your inner thigh, bro? Slutty! I love
That
it.
took you a while.
That's hot. Slutty. God,
Hell
that's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah,
All
this is
right.
good quality ties. What can
It
I
is.
say?
It is. Okay. Now let me get my notes together and up. Welcome in,
Mm-hmm.
everyone. I hope you're all having a great day. Sorry, just letting everyone know ahead of time. Um, when it comes to being, actually, wait, it's weird.
What's up?
Sorry, YouTube was acting weird. Okay, we're cool now. Okay, anyway. Um, as usual, these kinds of streams, there's gonna be a lot of questions, a lot of discussion. I'm sorry that a lot of the alerts have been turned off. I must ask that if you contribute bits, please do not do any sound redeems or anything like that, just out of respect for my questions and our guests' uh answers, as well as the presentation they're giving. I'm gonna do my best. I'm going to read chat. I'm not gonna be able to read it aloud and respond for a lot of it, but we will have questions towards the end of stream. So hold your questions until then, and we will be more than happy to focus on them. Um, like I said, this is probably gonna be maybe a third or a half of her presentation. Excuse me. Um, but we will have a round of questions at the end of each stream. So no worries about being like, oh my god, I gotta wait for 3 weeks. Good to know my alerts being borked wasn't just a me thing. Hey Justin, welcome in, dude. How you doing? Yeah, I don't know what's up with my alerts and stuff today. It's been odd. Or this week, honestly. Alright, so now that we've got everything together, let's go ahead and get started. Yariko, you ready?
I am ready, yes.
I gotcha. All right, let's go ahead and hit up slide one. All right. So this one is about your background. Let me double check and make sure everything is pretty much
Yeah.
readable for the most part. Yeah, it's good enough. All right.
Yeah, good
So,
enough.
go ahead, explain away.
All right, so I'm Yari. I was born in Monterrey in the state of Nuevo León. That means New Lion. It got its name because when the Spanish came, they felt that that area of the country looked like Leon in Spain, so they call it New Lion, right?
That makes sense.
And yeah, yeah, yeah. Usually people do that, right? And but my parents didn't actually live there. I was only born there because my parents just wanted me to be born there because my grandpa was from there or something like that. I don't remember.
Interesting.
Yep. We were living actually in Ciudad del Carmen, Campeche, which is a small island in the state of Campeche in the south on the Yucatan Peninsula.
And I'm in the way of it a little bit, so let me move real
Yeah.
quick if you guys want to see it. Campeche is down where that purple star is. So the first purple star next to Monterey, like right where I'm looking, is where Yarika was born, but she's always lived in Campeche, the one at the bottom right. So just so you guys
Right,
know on
right,
the
right.
map. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, and then after I graduated from high school, I came back to Monterey and I studied university and I just stayed here.
Okay.
I traveled a lot around Mexico. I've been to Quintana Roo, Yucatan. I've been to Sonora, Chihuahua, Coahuila, Nuevo León, Tamaulipas, San Luis Potosí, Querétaro, Veracruz, Chiapas, Tabasco, Guanajuato,
I've also
Mexico
been to hot
City.
sauce.
Hell yeah. Where else I've been? I've been to Baja California, and I think that's it.
So you kind of have actually just kind of been literally everywhere, pretty much.
Yeah, we have like 31 states. I think I've been to like 20 something.
I gotcha. So
Yeah.
outside of like where you live, which is Campeche, what would you
No,
say is like?
Monterrey. No, Leon. That's where I live. I live in the north right now.
Oh, okay, so my mistake. You were born in Campeche and you moved up to
No,
Monterey.
no, no.
I'm
I was
so
born in.
confused.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's fine. I was born in Monterrey
And then you
at the
moved to
north.
grow up in Campeche and then you moved back to
Exactly. And then
Monterey.
I moved back basically. Yes.
Okay,
That,
okay. That makes
mm,
more sense.
yeah.
Okay, so I guess I have to ask, outside of Monterey and Campeche where
Mm.
you've lived, what is like your favorite state? Like what did you enjoy? Like what is like I don't know if it could be like you could pick like geography wise, people wise, food wise, whatever, but like which one is like would you say like has been your favorite traveling experience in Mexico?
Oh man, that's a tricky one because
Yeah.
like it's very varied. You know, like the south is way different than the north of Mexico. Like you get a lot
Right.
of jungles and really tropical climate on the south, but if you go to the north, it's more dry, way more cold. For example, in Chihuahua, we get snow. Also in Monterey,
Really?
where
Oh,
yeah,
cuz you're the
here in
tail end of the
Monterey,
Rockies.
yeah, 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 pretty much, pretty much. Actually, in Monterey, there's a lot of mountains. I live on the side of a mountain right now. Like my house is
Oh, cool.
on a hill, and we sometimes get snow. Like this winter, I think it was like last week. When I went to donate blood, it was snowing that day.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy too cuz like you would never expect like literally ever snow in Texas. Like that is apocalypse, frankly.
Right, right,
It's
right,
more
right.
it's more realistic that like an asbestos truck exploded and covered the city than it is getting snow. But
Right.
um
I can show you a picture. I don't know if you want to show it to chat because that would
you
be,
can show me
I
a
guess,
picture. It's gonna be pretty difficult at this point to show it. I'm afraid.
right, 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 right. Yeah, I feel it. I feel it. But let me see. Um, that's not you. That's you.
That's
Mm,
me. Oh
yeah,
wow, yeah.
that's in Chihuahua, but close to my city. The like this is literally 40 minutes from where I live,
Oh, okay.
and this happened like I think like 2 years ago.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, pretty
All right.
snowy. Mm-mm-mm.
So
Where
you
I
got
live, I don't know, man. It's a big country. I like Querétaro. Querétaro is nice. That's a small state, pretty
okay.
chill. No earthquakes.
That is definitely a
Mexico.
plus.
Yeah, Mexico City is cool, but earthquakes. That's very spooky.
Yeah, I totally get that. So
Mhm.
I guess you got one more left, which is like career. Um,
Right,
so you
right.
wanted to be an archaeologist originally?
Yes, yes, because I grew up in Campeche, right? And Campeche
Right.
has like a lot of Mayan archaeological sites. And
Mm,
I've been to a ton of them, even some that were not open to public. Like I had to get a special permit from the Anthropology and History Institute. I
interesting.
went there, I got a permit, and then I went to the site, but it was super flooded, so we couldn't get to the site. So we had to go do it over again, like on the next week and stuff. Yeah,
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 that's
yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, I really like that. And my parents obviously were super opposed to the idea
Yeah,
because over here, sadly, like there's a lot of field work to do, right? Like there's a lot of sites and a lot of history and stuff, but the government just doesn't really put the money into that. They don't give a
right.
crap.
Yeah.
So most archaeologists I met, they are all like tourist guides, sadly.
It is kind of sad because, like, in the United States, like, it's kind of like similar where it's like, I wouldn't say the government doesn't give a crap, but like, it's kind of like teaching where we give a crap, but at the same time won't fund it. It's really weird.
Yeah, 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 pretty much, and
Like we'll
because
do our best to like legally protect it, but when it comes to actually paying people to upkeep it, it's like, whatever.
right,
So, yeah. So I guess we'll hit up with my first question, which actually like
right.
is not on the list. So I'm hitting you with a sidewinder.
Oh my
Um,
god.
so like something I've always noticed is like anime surprisingly plays a bit of an important culture. It seems like or important role in like Mexican culture at some point. Like for
Right.
example, like you're an anime girl on the internet, but also like you've got a
Yeah.
picture down here that's got at the bottom that's got Shinji, Rei, and Asuka from Evangelion eating tacos in front of a Goku styled taqueria.
Yeah, that's an
Um,
actual real place actually.
yeah, I know it is. So like I was gonna ask like how actually like common is that? Where like it's got like
Very.
Goku or like anime characters is like part of advertising and like how actually big is it
It's
in
very
Mexico?
common. Very, very common. So there's a state called Jalisco,
Right.
and the capital of that state is called Guadalajara. During COVID, they ran an ad and they made posters and all that stuff. And let me find the ad because
Don't worry about it too much.
yeah, yeah, no, but it's funny. Because it's wild. Um, let's see.
Okay.
Copy
I will
image
say,
and
don't spend
paste.
too much time
Yeah,
looking
no, no,
stuff
no.
up. We have
It's
like
there. It's
9
there.
pages of stuff to go through. We don't have time to
Right,
look
right,
up
right,
every question.
right. So basically, there's a state television channel, right?
Right.
Back in the day, it was kind of state owned, but now it's like its own private enterprise or whatever, own private company.
Hmm.
And what that channel did back then, and I think it's been done like that. Like it's free. You can just tune in whenever, whatever. Even if you don't have cable, you can just like it's like radio broadcasted or whatever. I don't know the specifics, right? Um, and in that channel during the cartoon time, they would air also anime, like a lot of anime.
Oh. So it's kind of like it was
Why?
for kids.
Yeah, 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 I guess. But
Okay.
this has been happening since like the 80s.
Oh,
So
okay. So it's much longer lasting than for kids.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because like for kids was like, I think it was like 2003 to like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
2012. I don't even think it's a thing anymore. So,
Yeah, I think it doesn't exist anymore. I have no idea. But this one, for example, it's been like I saw Dragon Ball when I was in primary school, right? Like
mm.
when I got from school, Dragon Ball, like the original Dragon Ball was airing, and it was completely dubbed by Mexican people, and they also had Sailor Moon, Evangelion. Somehow, I don't know why.
Yeah. Nothing says kids programming like a kid jerking off in his own hand. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Saint Seiya. which
Saint
have a lot
Seiya is
of
not like completely kid friendly either. Wow.
yeah, like we had that. We had what else?
Was it like washed clean like ours was
No,
for
oh
kids?
fuck no, it was like
Really? That's
yeah,
wild. Okay, cool.
we got it 100% uncensored. We saw Goku's balls. We saw
What?
Bulma's
Oh my, that's
tits.
hilarious. Oh my
We
god.
saw their blood. We saw Krillin getting fucking killed like 20 million times.
Meanwhile, 4 kids like had like Yu-Gi-Oh censoring guns, so it looks like they're pointing their fingers. Like, oh
Oh
my,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
crazy. We went like way too hard with it, and y'all didn't try at all. That's
Oh no,
wild.
we didn't try at all, dude.
That's
There
so
was
funny.
there's one called Dragon Quest that also was super bloody. I mean, not super bloody,
Yeah.
but it was kind of bloody back then. But
All
yeah,
right.
no censorship. I think they just didn't
That's
bother watching the shows. Like they
yeah. They
were like,
probably
oh, it's a
didn't.
kids show, whatever.
Well, just buy the license. Fucking throw it up there. Who cares? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
Um.
much.
So I guess my next question is this one's a little bit in depth. So it's how does growing up on the
Mhm.
Yucatan compare and contrast with other parts of Mexico? Are there any major cultural differences?
Well, this is a tricky question, and I can kind of say yes and no. Like Mexico is a very big and diverse country, right? With
Right.
rich history that spans hundreds of years, if you count from the Spanish times, to
I guess to
thousands of
like
years.
I guess to narrow
Mhm.
it down compared to the rest of Mexico, what makes Campeche Campeche?
Right. I mean, the people, I guess, the food, the music. Like each state has their own specific type of music type, like their own specific dance, like traditional
Right.
dancing, their own traditional clothing, the way they talk. Like they have different, like the accent is a bit different than the people from Yucatan, also way different than the people from Tabasco for whatever reason.
Interesting.
Um, which is like next to each other, right? Um, Also in Campeche, they have this rich history from the colony era, and then after the colony, nothing happened for
Right.
years and
Just kind of
years,
left to their own devices.
pretty much. And it's mostly because between the Yucatan Peninsula and Mexico City, you get these little narrow passes, right? We call it the Istmo de Tehuantepec. But back then, there were no roads that connected that area to Mexico City, right?
Right.
So communication was really tricky, and it was mostly done via ships, like ports, going from Campeche to Veracruz, for example. But from land, there were no roads, no railroads for a lot of years. And actually, there was a secession movement that started in Yucatan, and they convinced Campeche and Quintana Roo, and I think Tabasco to join and to secede.
Wow.
Yeah, they seceded for like a week or something like that. I
A
don't
week,
remember.
a whole week.
Yeah. And
They
then they were
literally
like, you
went,
know what?
yeah, we're independent. And then a week later, they're like, all right, this kind of sucks.
Yeah, it
I take it
happened.
back.
Kind of happened during the Mexican Revolution, if I remember correctly,
Right.
because they had these really
Dude, a
big and
week. Oh my god, that's
wait.
crazy.
It's interesting because they had this really big and strong Enequén industry. Enequén is a type of agave plant where you
Right.
get fibers from, right? And when they seceded or wanted to secede, Anakin was used everywhere to make rope, basically.
Right. It was
And
y'all's version of hemp.
yeah, basically. But then plastic was discovered and industrialized, and
And then it
Anakin
was
was
like,
like,
all right.
yeah, it was kind of phased out. So
Yeah, you got
their
replaced by like
economic
nylon.
advantage just went to shit, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay. So, I guess kind of a contrast to that last question. Does Mexico have like a unified historical identity, which has been like kind of touched upon already, but like when I mean like a unified historical identity, I mean the sense of like similar heroes, myths, identities. Um for example, like when people outside of the US look
Mm-hmm.
at the United States, they say United States, they don't go for each individual state. But
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you're actually inside the United States, those individual states like are vastly different and have vastly different histories behind them. Like for example,
right,
um common American ones are like George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. But like if you live in Tennessee, it's like where I live, it's like God, it's like volunteer history, like fighting at the Alamo,
right, right,
Daniel
right,
Boone, like those kind of people, like frontiersmen kind of stuff, like Appalachian frontiersmen kind of stuff. So,
right.
is there any for like we've talked about like you're essentially like separated parts of Campeche, but are there like what is the unified historical identity kind of look like? Like what is like I guess like what are like your heroes, myths, identities, stuff like that.
Right, right, right. So I could answer this in a simple way, right? So we have something that I'm assuming, I don't know the name in the US, but we have something like a Ministry of Education here.
Right,
Over here, education is free, and like, I mean, you also have like private schools, right, where you pay for education, but
right. Yeah.
they usually teach the same materials that you get in the public system. And we have schools that go from like kindergarten to high school and then universities.
So in that
But
case, like,
mm,
sorry for interrupting. First off, Costa, thank you for the sub. Welcome back to the harem. Um, my question there would be, if they teach the same kind of stuff, like, what's the benefit of like going to like a private over a public school? Is it just
right.
like strictness, connections? I guess.
I mean, connections could be one. Some schools do teach like more strictly, I guess, or
Mm.
they try to make the students, you know how it
More
is, right?
more
Yeah,
behavioral than it is
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
actual like
yeah.
education. I gotcha. Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
exactly. And also, like public schools tend to have like a ton of students, so teachers don't
Right. Yeah.
really can
Make it more
they cannot
personalized. Yeah.
basically, yeah. But yeah, basically the Ministry of Education provides the books and teaching materials for to all the country, right? And we all get taught about the same heroes, about the same history, about the same broad, like this is like in a broad level.
Right. Right.
Also, because during the we have the history class and the civic class, civism. Um, Civism teaches you like what is to be a Mexican, what is the values of being Mexican, how you have to take pride in being Mexican, you have to salute the flag, the national anthem, all that stuff, right?
Right.
And then history teaches you like, okay, so before the Spaniards, there were these civilizations that existed in these areas, blah blah blah. And if you are in a certain specific state that had some of those early pre-Hispanic civilizations, like for example in the Yucatan Peninsula, you get taught Mayan. Um,
Interesting. So
yeah, if
like
you were like
there
in
are
central
slight
Mexico, you get taught
differences.
Nahuatl. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's like if you are, for example, if I take history class in Campeche, I would learn like the major history of Mexico, and then I would also learn about the history of Campeche, right? Like I
Okay.
would learn about the
I gotcha.
specific things or archaeological sites that happen in Campeche. I would learn a bit of Mayan, about like specific tidbits that other states won't really focus on
Right.
because
That
they're
is
not from here, right?
that is kind of interesting because like in the United States, like I guess just because like it's been I don't want to say it's because it's been unified for so long, but because like there's just always been like a sense of like I'm American. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, like in high school, I don't think I ever really learned anything about like strictly Tennessee history, for example. I like there were like mentions, but it's not like we'd have like a class on it, for example. Like that would not be something that
Right,
would be
right.
offered until like college. I don't know if anyone else in the United States like had a different experience. I know there's definitely some states that are definitely Texas that are gonna like focus way more on like their individuality, but like when it comes to like I feel like a lot of states in the United States, it's just kind of like, yeah, here's your American history, like this was a figure from Tennessee, so we're gonna give him like an extra 10 minutes of like talking about him, and then we're gonna continue talking on about American history. So that's kind of
Right.
interesting. It's kind of cool to actually hear that like you do actually like learn a lot about like local stuff. Everything else, it's like you want to learn about it, go to a local museum or something. You know.
Right. Yeah, I
Okay.
can actually specifically tell you on my, I think it was my second year of high school. It was a specific history of my state.
Okay.
Like the first year was like country, then the second year was like state,
Yeah, it
then
like
the
zoomed
third year
in.
was like world
Yeah,
history or whatever.
I totally get
You
that.
know. Mhm.
Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about the overview of Mexico and its states. Here's something that,
Mhm.
like, I guess I definitely don't hear a lot about, and I definitely know a lot of people in the U.S. don't hear about. In
Right.
fact, I would dare I say I don't mean to be rude to my American brethren and sistren. I don't sistren sisters. Um, but like, I'm pretty sure like 40% of Americans don't even know what a Guatemala, Belize, and El Salvador are. Um, but I want to ask, what is the general perception
Mm,
of countries around Mexico? You don't have
right.
to talk about U.S. I think we all know about that one. Um,
Yeah.
but most importantly, I want to focus on
Spicy
the
topic.
southern neighbors, and whether you guys share any forms of like historical identity.
Right. Well, I don't know if you're aware, but when Spain came here and they made the colony of the New Spain,
Right.
that extended all the way up to the border with Panama.
Right. Yeah, it literally went
So
from like where modern day Canada is all the way down to,
yeah,
yeah, Panama. Yeah.
pretty much. And
Three
below
fourths
that
of it
was
was
the,
empty, but yeah.
yeah, I mean big desert and all that jazz, right?
Right.
Um, but then south of that was the I think it was called the Capitanía General de Colombia or something like that. That was the other colony.
Mm,
But the New Spain, that's Mexico, right? When
right.
we fought the War of Independence, that lasted like 10 years, I believe. All that territory, all the New Spain was independent, and that all that territory became Mexico, including all the part of Central America.
Right.
But right after the independence war was fought, the people from the um, the part of Central America that included Chiapas, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, all that part, they said, you know what, we want to form our own country because inside the colony of the New Spain, there were something called capitanías generales, which are like states.
Right.
And that part of Central America, that was a state called Guatemala. That was the Capitanía de Guatemala, right?
Right.
That all that part. And then they broke off from the Mexico, right? When we were formed. After some years, Chiapas seceded from Guatemala and joined Mexico. But this happened like in the early 1900s, something like that.
Right. Right.
Belize, on the other part, it was never part of of that New Spain colony because Belize is or was a colony of the UK.
Really? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
Belize is the only place in all of Central America that speaks English. That's their.
Interesting.
I mean, they also speak Spanish, right? Because they have a lot of
Right, but that
pressure
supposed to
from the
be
other
that has
countries.
to be
So.
kind of weird, like almost European in a sense, where like you're on the southeastern corner of Campeche and you walk across the border of Belize and all the signs are in English.
Yeah, literally, pretty much. That's how it is. Because English
Right.
is the official language. It was a colony of the UK up until 1980 something, if I
Oh,
remember
so like
correctly.
really recent. Holy shit.
Yeah, like very, very
I
recent,
assumed when you were
yes.
saying that, I was like, oh yeah, probably dropped it like 1908. Like,
No, 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 no. This happened like not so long ago.
that's crazy. I didn't even know like Belize is unironically like the fucking Sandwich Islands. That's crazy. All right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They have this view of themselves as not being part of Central America. They kind of like think of themselves more as if they are part of the Caribbean, you know. Um,
Right.
um, I honestly don't know what view they have of Mexico because I don't know many people from Belize. I don't actually think I know anyone from Belize. Um, and I met few people from other parts of Central America, and they usually speak well of Mexicans and Mexico. So I would assume they have a decent or an okay view of the country. And honestly, on a personal level, and I think this is very common amongst Mexico, we see them as brothers and sisters. So
Right.
yeah,
That makes sense. Okay,
yeah,
so
I
like,
don't
yeah.
know. Mm-mm.
So very positive. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is there
yeah, I
like
hope so.
any so I mean obviously you have shared history even though you split off at the same
Mm-mm.
time once, gaining independence.
Right.
Um I'm curious. So independence for Mexico, remind me, was gained in the 19th century, right? So like the 1800s.
No, yeah, yeah, 19th century, 1800s,
Okay.
1821, I
So that
guess.
is pre that is usually what a lot of historians say is the pre-rise to the modern nation, which usually happened like
Right,
very early 20th century, turn of the century, around World War One era. Were
right.
there any kind of thinking in a European sense because Mexico is Canada doesn't have this, the United States doesn't have this because they were pretty solidly put together before that time period. And
Mm,
didn't really have any other countries that had to like really contend with besides Mexico, for example.
mm-hmm.
Um, so my question is, I guess for this is like, comparing it to Europe. Europe
Right,
had an issue where because empires were a thing and they were recently brought out of empires, they had a lot of shared heroes, stories, myths, etc.
mm-hmm.
That they would each claim as like being uniquely, let's say, Polish, for example.
Right,
Because there's an example where a World War One or no, 100 Years War veteran that was a famous admiral was born in what is now a Polish city, but moved as a young kid to what is now an Austrian city, and then like sailed and fought for his navy in what is modern day Ukraine, something along those lines. So all three
right,
claim him as a national hero, when in
right,
reality, like it's debatable of whether he's a national like belongs to any of those nationalities at all because he was under the Habsburg Empire, for
right,
example.
right, right.
So is there anything like that to where like Guatemala, Belize, well, Belize obviously is going to be much different, but Honduras, El Salvador, and Mexico, even the United States, I guess, in some places, claim like a
Mm.
hero or something that is uniquely theirs, but is actually like shared among multiple nationalities?
Mm, I
Sorry
don't
for the
honestly.
extremely long question.
No, you're good. You're good. I don't think we have any of that with Guatemala, Honduras, Salvador, Belize, or any of those
Right.
places, right? We do have a strong shared Mayan heritage,
Right. Which makes
but
sense, but those, yeah.
yeah, that happened so fucking long ago. And by the time the Spanish came here, the Mayans were long gone, right? Like
Right.
they were just small, really small city states that really couldn't fight back against the Spanish. Um, but I don't think we have any of that
Okay.
um,
Cool to
with
know.
them. There are some more modern people that like were born in Mexico and then went to the US and did something cool, and Mexicans are like, oh yeah, that guy is Mexican.
Yeah, I get that. Okay.
Yeah. Like the guy this is the one that I can remember right now. The guy who invented color television. He was a
Really? Oh, okay, cool.
Mexican engineer.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a lot of stuff that when you're American, I'm sorry, American friends, but you're gonna find pretty frequently there's a lot of stuff in American history that you look at it, like for example, basketball, for example, you're like, oh yeah, like that's as American as apple pie, and then you look at the history, it's like invented by a Canadian. Like there's a lot of stuff like that that is like super popularized in American culture that actually came from like Canada or Mexico and just kind of were popularized in the United States, you know? So,
Right.
all right. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next slide.
Right.
This is a timeline of
Mm-hmm.
Mexico's history. I guess I would like let you loose if you do you have like any notes on this slide? It seems like a pretty cut and dry slide. I do have some questions if you're ready.
It's a cut and dry because I honestly I didn't have a lot of space in that area, like in that slide to like put more
Right,
shit,
right, right, right.
and I didn't want
We,
it to
we
be
get
like
we get
super
deeper into
super
these
loaded.
weeds anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So
So
basically, Mexican pre-Hispanic history is divided into three periods, right? Well, it's more than three periods, but these are the three important periods.
right,
Before the pre-classic, it's basically prehistory or caveman people, basically, right?
right.
The pre-classic is when we see civilizations start to like settle and make religions, make towns, make city states, make war, all that stuff. Then
So
the
if you don't
classic.
if you don't mind real quick, I'm going to make a quick
Right.
pause just for chat so I
Yeah.
can explain the graph. So,
Right.
just in case somebody's not getting the graph. So, up here, up at the top where it says pre-classico, classico, and post-classico, this is your time period. So this is just like your time running across the top. And then on this left side, it is regional. So like, if you see like, for example, in the middle, we have Mixteca. They were in the Oaxaca. I have no idea how to say that. I'm so sorry.
Oaxaca.
Oaxaca. Thank you.
Yeah, there
In the
you go.
Oaxaca region. So like the different colors represent the different regions they're in. So
Yeah.
that's what you're looking at with this graph. Top is time. That is when it moves left to right. That's the time that it existed.
Right.
And then up and down is regional. Okay. Sorry
Right.
about that.
AC
Continue.
means before Christ, and DC means after Christ, after the death of Christ. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So we have the pre-classic, which is
You
it
know those
spans
Mayans
from
on their ancient step temples were sitting there with their mathematical calendars and went, "Ah, god damn it, Jesus died. All right, everybody chisel it off. We got to restart." Fuck.
Pretty much.
We had this shit backlog for 12,000 years and that idiot fucking died on us. God damn it.
God damn it! No, they had names for those years, right?
Oh yeah, they do
They made a
definitely.
really spicy calendar. Very cool stuff. I don't remember any of that right now, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
Eventually.
Yeah. So this span of time, the pre-classic, started from 2100 before Christ, right?
Right.
So that's a lot of years ago.
Trying to think of like in other parts of the world what 2100 BC looked like. Definitely I think it was like Middle Kingdom for Egypt. So old.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very,
Where
very old, very old.
this is not even close to being recent. That's 2000 years. Not 2000 years. It's like
4,000
18 1900 years before Rome, for example.
Right.
So I think we're looking at like, if I'm not mistaken on my dates, we're looking at like middle of ancient Egypt, and then we're definitely looking at like the beginnings, if not a little bit into ancient Greece. So this is old. This is not like Roman Empire old. This is Roman Empire was a baby old. So
yeah, pretty much. And you have to take into account because sometimes people think of the Mesoamerican or the American civilizations as being behind.
right.
You have to take into account that they had to walk all the way from Africa to America, right?
Mm-hmm.
that took a while. That took some years.
Oh, hold on one moment. Yo! Welcome in, Raiders! Welcome in, everyone. My name's Hara Rae Sol. I'm Egyptian Peregrine Sun Goddess. I do history, variety, and War Thunder streams. And tonight we're doing a history stream on the history of the Yucatan with our guest, Yari-ko-san. Thank you so much for the raid, Arthur. How was your stream? What were you doing? Oh, how was it? Ka-chow Guardian raid? Alright, somebody get the mallet.
Ka-chow.
You said ka-chow in chat. Somebody get the D-baller. Stream was alright, playing Doki Doki Literature Club. Hell yeah, there's nothing we love more than mentally ill anime women, am I right, Yariko?
Oh fuck yeah, I love that.
Alright, so we're talking about currently a timeline of the history of the Yucatan. But yeah, as you were saying, Yariko, sorry for the interruption.
Yeah,
What
no,
were
you're
you
good,
saying?
you're good. So it took a while for those people to get into this area and settle and develop agriculture and grow technologically speaking, right?
Mhm.
Culturally too. Then we have the classic, which started around 200 DC, Common Era CE, I think it's the word, right?
Right.
Yeah. And then the post classic, which started around 900 CE.
Gotcha.
And then we have the Mexica, which are also known as the Aztecs for you guys. The Mexica were not a thing until 1200 CE, right? Before that, they were just a nomadic tribe in the north of Mexico.
Right.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
I guess to go ahead and get out of the way while we're looking at this one, which one of these is what is like most, I guess, reflective of modern Mexican culture?
The one we take from the most is the Mexica, right? Because those were the ones
And to
that
make
ruled the
sure,
most.
the Mexica, which are right here up at the top right of the graph, are different than the Mixteca in the middle.
Yeah, no, they are different. Yeah, they're in the
Okay.
different areas. The Mexica did conquer some Mixteca areas, but the Mixteca were a way more older civilization than
Right.
them. Yep. Mhm.
So I'm gonna ask a really dumb question, but I like it because it's fun. Which one is
Go
your
for it.
favorite, just purely based off name?
Just purely based on
Just
name.
purely based, like who's got the coolest name?
Right. I mean, there's some that I didn't put like that don't show up here, right? But
Right.
because we have so many, it's
Right.
fucking
Right.
insane. Like if we in like 2 slides, you'll see the map and you'll be like, holy fuck. But I really like the Zapoteca name. I
That's
don't
what
know
I was
why.
gonna
It's just
say.
fun. Hell yeah.
Yes. There's just something about it. It hits.
Yeah, I know,
It's
right?
cool.
It's just cool as fuck.
Like it's kind of like like Apache or like something like that, where it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like I don't know. I can just imagine like some guy like I don't know like beaten to a bloody pulp in a dark alleyway, and like a group
Right.
walking away from it. It's like, yeah, that's right. That's why you don't fuck with the Zapotecs. Like it's just sick. Like it's cool.
Yeah, no, fucking banger. I love
Yeah,
that name.
sick. Yeah, that's right, babe. You just got Zapotec'd. All right, now we gotta figure out what that means, Erika. What does it mean when you Zapotec somebody?
Oh man, I don't know, but probably taking out your heart and you need to go out or something. I don't know.
Sheesh.
That
Okay,
was common practice.
I wasn't gonna go that far with it. I was gonna say like when you take an otlotl.
Well, I'll invite you for coffee first. Don't worry, baby.
Okay, chill. Second off, I was gonna say I think Zapotec. If you get Zapotec, it's where you take like a taser and tape it to the end of an otlotl, and you just absolutely otlotl the shit out of somebody with a stick that's got a taser on the end. You got Zapotec.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
All right.
You know what that means? Like the name?
I don't actually.
Obviously you don't. Okay. So it's a word in Nahuatl, right? Nahuatl
Right.
is the language of the Mexica,
Right.
and it means town of the zapote.
Okay.
And the zapote is a type of fruit. That's it.
Interesting. I like that.
Yeah. Simple. Pretty simple.
All right. Now, who's got the worst name? Who's got like just pure off name? Who's got the worst?
Okay, so this is Spanish bias, right?
Right.
You see, there's one that's called Totonaca.
Toponaka.
Right?
Gotcha.
Totonaca. It's in
Totonaca.
around the
Right.
middle, below the Olmeca.
Yeah, I see them. They're
So,
they're like the orange.
Yeah. So Totonaca sounds really similar to the word tonto, which means fool in Spanish.
Oh, so it sounds like people of the idiots.
Yeah. Sounds something like that.
That's funny. I don't know why, but like
Yeah.
Olmec just like does not spark joy.
It
It's just
doesn't
something
spark
about
joy.
it.
Wait until you
It's
see
like
their heads.
yeah, I'm Zapotec. What are you? I'm Olmec. Like it's like all right, cool, great.
Yeah. Wait until you see their heads. It was
Oh,
that
sick. Here we go. I'm excited. All right.
good.
So I'm gonna move to the more. I'm sorry. Was there more you wanted to talk about with
No,
this?
no, we can
I
go.
gotcha. I'm not
But
rushing. So if you
I
got
will
something you
say, check something out. Check the time periods of the Maya and compare that to the Mexica, right? Because a lot
right,
of people used to think that
the
the
Maya were the
Maya.
oldest.
No, I mean they are the oldest amongst the Mexica, right? But they used to think that they coexisted, right?
Right.
But when the Mexica rose to power, the only Mayan kingdom that was still doing something was the Chichen Itza one.
Yeah. Right.
Um, and they were going out when when the Mexica rose to power, right?
Right.
Everywhere else, it was just like really small city states or towns, because they had like a Mayan league, and the league there was some political strife and it broke off and everyone said fuck you to everyone else,
As you do.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and they literally went to shit, right? They abandoned their big cities and they just I don't know what happened. No one knows for sure what triggered this, but it just happened. It's called it's known as the Mayan catastrophe or something like that.
One day, everybody woke up and was just like, you know what? The vibes are off. I'll see you guys later.
Yeah, pretty
Like,
much, pretty much.
it's like
Everyone became
historians are looking
libertarians.
back. Historians are looking back, and it's like, could it have been like a mass extinction event? Was it like maybe disease, maybe famine? And they're just like, one day, like you go back to like shit, 700 BC or AD, and it's just like, you know what? I'm just not really feeling the vibes anymore. I don't want to be a palinque or palinque anymore. I
Palenque.
want to be
I actually,
Zapotec. So you know what? I'm moving. Like,
yeah, actually, some people did that, right? They abandoned those cities and they just literally just went to other cities.
yeah,
Could have been they could have gone to the south to towns like Tikal, which is in Guatemala, or to the north to Tenochtitlan. But yeah,
right. Interesting. All right.
yeah,
So I guess for the big in-depth questions I have for this page is, well, I already asked one, which was the most
right.
immediate parent to modern Mexican identity, which is, I believe you said the Mexica. Is that right?
Mexica, yeah,
Mexica,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
In that case, what would you consider to be the height of culture in Mesoamerica? And that category, what I mean by height, is up to you purely.
Right. Wait, let me. Okay. I found it. So this is a tricky question because
Mm.
as you see, there are three periods, like three
It's
important
very
periods, right?
subjective. It is very
Yeah.
subjective.
I know it's super
Yeah, and
subjective.
that's why I wanted to
Uh,
ask it because it's a very subjective question.
so I feel that there are a couple of important points in the timeline, right?
Hmm.
One of the important parts is when Teotihuacan rose to power, because you can see influence of the Teotihuacan architecture and the gods they worshipped literally everywhere else, right?
Right.
And like you can see it in the Mexica temples, you can see them in Chichen Itza. Um, you can see influence in Palenque too, which is very far away from Teotihuacan. And so that was a civilization that had a lot of cultural influence, religious influence, military, probably unsure, because we don't really know much about the Teotihuacans themselves, right? We just know
Right.
the city. Um, but not much else about that. And besides that one, I would also say that the Olmecs had a lot of they got to a point of cultural height too.
Right.
Um, yeah. And then
Now,
after that, like that's in In the pre-classic, then classic, I would say Teotihuacan, and post-classic, I would say obviously the Mexica, right? Mexica
Right.
and the Chichen Itza area. I would say those are my post-classic cultural heights moments,
I gotcha.
personally. Hmm.
Yeah. And if you're sitting here, chat, and wondering, like, okay, I don't know what any of these names mean, don't worry. We're about to get really deep in them. So, you will learn
Yeah,
more about
we're gonna
each.
go
Yeah, this is just
balls
like an
deep.
overview. You will learn a lot about just about every single culture on this list. Speaking of, I think we're gonna move on to slide 3. Is there anything else you want to say about
Yeah.
it?
No, we can move to slide 3. Easy peasy.
All right, so you can go ahead and just
Right. So this is a simple slide. This is the way we kind of study pre-Hispanic Mexico. So we
right.
have three big regions, right? We have Oasis America in the north. We
Mm-hmm.
have Arido America, which covers like from central Mexico to the north. And then we have Mesoamerica. And Oasis, if you have questions, go for it.
Oh, I'll hold my
Shoot me.
questions till the end. Please get to your slide.
Gotcha. Okay. So Oasis America includes areas of present day Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado, Sonora, and Chihuahua, right? Uh, it was inhabited predominantly by agrarian societies, so they developed agriculture, contrasting with the nomadic tribes of Arido America, right?
So,
So
just
notable cultures there's Puebloans, Hohokam, Mogollon, Fremont, and Patayan.
right. So to like
Right.
kind of like give you an understanding, chat, if you know anything about Native Americans in America, Arito America is gonna be more like U.S. West, um, where you have like your. It's not gonna be a 1-to-1, of course, but it's gonna be where you have like your horse tribes, things like Blackfoots, Apaches, things like that.
Right.
Meanwhile, your agrarian societies, which, if I'm not mistaken, you said were Mesoamerica, right? Or is that Oasis America?
Oasis America had agrarian societies, right?
Okay, so Oasis America was the agrarian ones. Those are going to be your
Yeah.
Mississippi and river cultures. That is what
Right.
that is going to look like.
Right.
So like Arito America is going to be like kind of like it's nomadic in the sense of like they're usually chasing herds, they're scavenging, things like that. Oasis America is like large structures, large communities. We're talking about fishing and like farming, or like obviously that's what agrarian means, but we're looking at stuff like that. So if you're
Right.
looking to look for parallels, that's what we're looking.
Right. Yeah. Then we have Arido America, right? Which is characterized by an arid climate. That's why it's called arid. Annual precipitation between 120 to 160 millimeters annual, which is very low. I
That
mean,
is
people in
extremely low.
Texas know how that's what's the deal, right? Because that's how much it rains over here. It was usually or mostly inhabited by hunter-gatherer groups, often referred to as the Chichimeca, by the people of Mesoamerica, right? People in Mesoamerica saw those tribes and they were like, "Oh, those are Chichimecas," um, and that was kind of like a slur, right?
Right.
that they that kind of had a similar meaning to barbarians from Europe. Like if you want to draw a parallel, the way the Romans referred to the Germanics as barbarians, it's the same way here.
Right.
Um, yeah. They were usually just hunter gatherers. They did little to no agriculture.
Do
And
you actually know like why they're called specifically barbarians?
um, I mean, they used to raid towns and stuff, right?
So that
So-
is the belief, but the actual reason is because during the time period when
oh
you're
wait,
Roman.
time. You're asking about Europe. Okay, I thought
Yeah,
you were asking here.
Sorry. I meant like the
The-
European definition, like word for barbarian.
right. Go on. Tell me, enlighten me.
You stopped me and you still don't know the answer. Okay.
I mean, I remember something, but I want to hear what you want to say.
So the reason is because if you're a Roman and you're from a Roman perspective and you're listening to someone at
Right.
that time speak a Germanic language, it comes across as just hearing people say like bar, 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 bar. So
That's so
they
funny.
naturally they were like, well, obviously they sound like fucking idiots, so they're barbarians. Like, so yeah, that's where it came from.
that's that's amazing. I love it. And yeah, I mean, then we have Mesoamerica, right?
Right.
And Mesoamerica extends from Central Mexico to part of Central America. And in, it goes from Central Mexico to Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, and northern Costa Rica. Uh, Known for diverse indigenous cultures and civilizations, including the Olmec, Maya, Zapotec, Teotihuacan, Mixtec, Mexica, and characterized by shared cultural traits such as complex urban development, monumental architecture, and advanced agricultural practices. They developed sophisticated calendaric systems, writing systems, and art styles, and practiced ritualistic activities, including ball games and human sacrifices. Amazing! I
We
love
love
those.
those. We love those.
Yeah. Deeply integrated into a religious and societal structure. Um, yeah.
So I guess my main question would be, why is Mesoamerica
Mm.
known for the civilization building when like Oasis America is where like the agrarian societies are?
I mean, Mesoamerica was also agrarian, right? But
Right, but like I'm thinking of the sense of like, what would you
different
rather
extent.
farm, like a fertile flatland or literally the jungle? I think I'd pick fertile flatland literally 99
Right,
out of
right,
100
right,
times.
right,
But
right,
everyone knows, like, you know, pre modern Mexican culture is like the Mesoamerican
right.
civilization.
I mean, the Mexico Valley is a pretty fertile area, pretty flat too. Um,
Okay.
actually not a jungle. There's a lot of pine forests around that area. It gets pretty cold. Um,
Interesting.
yeah. What is
Okay.
America like the extent of their? I don't know much about them, but I've seen some structures they made, and they had like these settlements made with adobe. I'm pretty sure you've seen them somewhere.
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd also like to mention for people in chat, something that is to be noted is, especially when we're talking about like civilization building, civilizations can only be built and structured off of an abundance of resources, or at least the ability to create enough resources that it can be a staple for people to stay in one spot. But it also says a lot when someone is able to be nomadic in an area without being agrarian and still build upon its population. So things like she noted like yucca fruit, different types of beans, chia seeds, and cacti especially,
Mm.
um, are a massive boon for civilization building because it is natural staple foods that not only are surplus in not only like quantity but also in nutrients.
Yeah.
And allow for like easy farming in areas that are typically seen in areas like Mesopotamia, where like it is almost like no effort farming. It's not
Right.
like it's not like you're having to have cattle till land and work on a crop rotation. It's like I walked
Yeah.
around for 15 minutes and found 4 pounds of fucking blueberries. Like, that
Right.
is
Right.
like the kind
Just
of fertile
laying
we're talking
around.
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, when you think of like this area, don't think of like Fallout New Vegas, nuclear wasteland where it's like literally just rolling dry dirt. It's like surprisingly, especially during this period, like the ability to actually just straight up get food is surprisingly easy, unless you're looking for
Right.
things like specifically meat.
Yeah.
Um, I would also
Mm-hmm.
like to note the importance of beans, for example,
Right.
and how beans, with the difficulty of meat, um, make for an amazing like meat and nut or beans and nuts are
Mm.
pretty much practically up until probably quite recently in human history. We're talking like the last 100, 200 years. uh beans and nuts were your way to protein. Like meat
Oh
was
yeah.
like we got real fucking lucky type shit.
Mm-hmm.
So like don't knock a non-meat diet, man. That's what humanity used to like practically only eat. Like when you
Right.
think of like when you think of like ancient peoples, you think of like, like fucking like 12 fucking chisel-browed Neanderthals stabbing at a fucking mammoth with twigs. That was not that
Right.
common. That was not that common. I mean, it wasn't rare, but it's not like when you're. I mean, just think about it, like logically. Like, would you rather like walk around in some bushes and pull out a fuck ton of beans after like 30 minutes of just walking around, or would you like to go fight a fucking woolly mammoth barehanded,
Yeah.
like
Fuck
with
that, man.
10 of your biggest friends? Like that's, I think I'm still picking the beans,
Yeah,
honestly.
I'll still pick the beans. And actually, beans were something that was kind of like a staple fruit here, right? I mean, not
Right.
staple food. Uh, it's thought that beans actually originated in Mexico from like 150 varieties that are available nowadays, like 50 come
Is
from
there a
Mexico.
poisonous bean?
Uh, fuck, I don't know, man. Maybe.
I don't know, dude. I don't know. That stuff
I
they
don't
put
know.
in silica packets.
Oh, I mean, sure.
um,
Don't eat those, Hara. I know it's shiny and you
I
love
don't
it,
know,
but
man. They
don't.
smell good. They keep the oxygen fresh.
Right, right, right.
So I was actually going to ask. Another important part of early civilizations are ways to find clean hydration. Food is not obviously for mortals. I know it's surprising for me, a god who requires nothing but
Right,
attention to survive. Um,
right, right.
but not only talking about food in the equation, but hydration is important too, and water is extremely dangerous, untreated.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at other
Definitely.
parts of civilization, beer, wine are important staples. But barley and grapes are not something you can find on
Oh,
in
yeah,
Mexico
no.
or Central America. So is there anything that was like early in this period, I guess, that was like kind of like a weak form of alcohol that was used to
Actually,
essentially
there
create
there
common
are a
drinking?
couple. There are a couple, actually, yeah. So in Yucatan, in the Yucatan Peninsula, we have something called uh, malche, which is a type of meat, right?
Oh, okay. So
Because
mead was common here as well. Okay.
yes, we have malche. Also, we have ixtabetun, which is a different type of meat. Uh, in Mexico, we had endemic stingless bees, right? So before the Spanish came, we had bees. Um, they do produce honey. It's a bit different, but yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
then it's really tasty. It's good stuff. And then, and I know this because I'm a brewer also.
Right, right. Yeah, for a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
people that don't know that missed the first slide, Yoriko has an extensive background in brewing, so really
yeah. I'm an
cool.
alcoholic.
I'm an
Anyway,
no, wait, that's not what we were. Oh shit.
you gotta do quality testing,
That
bro.
is the
What can I
equivalent.
say?
That is the equivalent of me like talking a fuck ton about like liquor and then being like, yeah, like Hara's like works at like I don't know like a Tennessee whiskey factory. He's like, actually, I'm a moonshiner. Like, would you like to drink a bunch of clear liquid that tastes like ethanol out of my bathtub?
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah, dude.
And besides that, we also have something called um, pulque. And pulque is an interesting beverage made from, you go to the agave plants, right? The ones you use to make
Right.
tequila.
I'm not gonna lie, I was in the middle of ass. So I wrote this question about 2 weeks ago when we originally had this planned. It
Right,
wasn't until I was reading this question off to you as I was like, I don't even know. Like, definitely one of the answers is gonna be agave. Like, there's no
right,
way it's not going to be.
right. Yeah, yeah. So, and I'm gonna get to that, but so pulque comes from the agave plant, right?
Mhm.
It's the wild fermented sap from the plant. The way they produce it and harvest it is really interesting. you have to basically cut a hole on the plant and then scratch it to make like a cavity,
Right.
and then let the sap bleed over there, and then you collect it with like a really big
Interesting.
straw basically, and you put it into buckets and let it ferment.
Isn't
Wild
a
fermentation.
now?
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to
Right.
correct me. This is just what I remember about it. I could be completely wrong or thinking of something else. But isn't
Right.
agave like essentially like a small, like little bushland plant that if you like, well, I
Oh,
say
you are
small, but
so
it's not really
wrong.
small. But I
You're
thought like
so
if you
wrong.
cut into it, it's almost like jelly. Like what am I
No,
thinking
I
of?
mean that's a agabaceous plant, right? It's
Mm.
in the family of agaves. You're thinking of aloe
Okay.
vera.
Okay. Because like I
Yeah,
just remember
and
seeing
that
stuff where
that
it's
do be
like
small.
they'd cut
Yeah,
into
yeah,
a plant, like it's like a small like little shrub, and you cut into it, and it's like these big leaves, like these big
yeah.
triangular
No,
leaves, and like you could
yeah,
like
that's aloe.
squish it, and all this jelly comes out.
Yeah,
Oh, I might be
that's
thinking of aloe. Yeah, I might be thinking of
yeah,
aloe.
aloe
Yeah.
vera. Yeah, that's in the same family, but it's a
Right.
very small. Pulque. Let me show you a picture. I mean, I'm like agave. Sorry. So you can have an idea of the size of this thing.
I gotcha. Cause like I am a
These
big tequila
plants.
drinker, but I'm a fucking
Oh
idiot,
yeah,
and I don't really look
no
at like.
worries. Look at
Oh
that.
my god, that looks like something out of Jurassic Park. It doesn't help that he's wearing the exact same hat.
I know, right? But no, they are fucking
Yeah, those things are
massive,
massive.
dude. Yeah. And the
It
way
looks
you
like
make
it looks like Dr. Doofenshmirtz hit like a
yeah,
pineapple in the ground with his pineapple grow ray or whatever.
right. Yeah, so they are very big, right? And the way you make pulque is you take out some leaves and then scratch the core of the plant and let it bleed, collect the
Right.
sap and let it ferment, and that will give you a really slimy, white-looking beverage that kind of looks like cum,
I was about to say,
but
all
it
right, chat, get your cups
it
together.
tastes
It's y'all's
way
favorite.
better. Don't worry.
Yoriko knows from experience.
Yeah, I mean it's really tasty. What can I say? And it has like a really low alcohol content. I think it's like around 2 or 3%.
Okay, so yeah, like
So
it
it
would be
will
historically
give
with
you a
like a
buzz.
wine or a meat or an
Yeah, yeah,
early
yeah,
beer. Yeah, purely
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
alcohol is purely like not to get pissed fucking drunk, but to make sure
Right.
the water doesn't literally make you vomit till you die. Right.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think like a couple years ago, or 5, 8 years ago, something like that, some archaeologists actually found um, evidence of stills, like distillation stills
Mm.
from the pre-Hispanic era. So
Wow.
there has been some developments there, and they think that people were making tequila, right? I mean,
Right.
technically
I mean, it
mezcal,
would
but
make sense.
yeah, it would make sense. It would make sense.
Now that's a
Uh,
reminder, chat. That means no matter where you are in the world, if you're humanity and you're beginning to build a civilization, there's two things you're definitely gonna do, and that is build big fucking triangles and make a lot of fucking alcohol.
right. But funny thing is, for at least for the Mexica, it was not allowed to get drunk, right? So if you got drunk, they would execute you. That was one of the penalties.
Really?
Yep,
That
drunkenness was
see,
punished by death.
I remember one where it was like you just got like your house taken away. Like
Right.
which
They
sucks,
would
but
also do
like
that.
which
They would also
sucks,
do
but
that.
it's
Yeah.
like imagine actually being like, "Hey, you're on your second drink. Like, you want a third?" And it's like, no, no thanks. I kind of like my head today." Like, that's crazy. Yeah, that's
Yeah, pretty much.
insane.
But the funny thing is, it was allowed to drink alcohol or get inebriated, like not super like plastered, but kind of drunkish in certain religious events. And if you were an elderly person, you were allowed to get fucking bad shit drunk. That was fine.
That's actually that's so weird. Like that's
Yeah, they
it's
were
really
like, okay,
interesting.
you're old, you lead you've seen some shit, you can get plastered. It's fine.
I mean, I get that, but that's
Whatever,
like
man.
that's just so weird. It's like that shit with Rome where
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you can't play craps, but like you can like bet on a dude spilling another dude's innards. Like, why not? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like the cultures are weird. People are
Yeah, cults are pretty weird. I
like
do
I
agree with
really
you.
want to wonder. Like I really wonder what the justification was for that. And I get it, like kind of the sense of like drunk people, typically on average, obviously more than regular people, are going to be pretty rowdy and probably make some really bad decisions. But it's just interesting that it is like that heavy-handed, I guess, where it's like,
Yeah.
all right, you had your third fucking glass of agave juice. Get on the fucking block, degenerate. Like,
Yeah. Die, Ethan.
wait, how old
Yeah,
are you?
pretty.
Oh, okay.
No,
I
you're
guess it's
fine.
okay. I guess it's fine. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
all right. So I guess my next question would be, now that we're looking at the map here. Sorry, my eyes are dry and itchy because I'm a little eepy. I guess like my question is like, what did interactions, especially this is more of like a question with Oasis and Arito America. What kind of
Right.
interaction, like what did interaction look like with kind of like North American tribes? Like I'm thinking of like Apache, kind of stuff.
Well,
Where
I
I guess I'm
mean,
wondering more of like, would it be common for cultures like say in the middle of Arito America to move northward, like
right.
across like the border that we would consider today? And also, did it also develop a sense of horse culture like we saw in the Western United States?
Well, that's a funny question, right? Because horses did not exist in America until the
Right.
Spaniards brought
They were
them with
brought over
them,
by
right?
the Spanish, right?
Yeah, yeah. So there were no horses, there were no cows, um, like no cattle, no pigs. Main sources of protein were like wild boars and
Right.
turkey, basically, right? And deer, obviously. But we didn't really have domesticated big animals in America up until the Spanish period.
Right, but like my question is more like it's totally fine to talk about the time after that. I'm just wondering if a
Right.
horse culture was ever developed.
Um, I mean, when the Spanish came here, yeah, I would say horses became a part of the culture, but by that time, there were no more tribes, you know?
Okay, so
Right.
it's
Because
so
the
there was
Spanish,
not.
it
Hold
took
on,
them.
let me finish real quick.
Mm,
So
right, right,
it's not like it would be Western United States. It's either like they had horses and they were under the Spanish, or
I
where
mean, Apache were in that territory, right? And
sometimes, but
they did develop that kind of culture.
right. So that
But
was my
we're
question.
talking
Like,
about this is something that took hundreds of years to develop, right? Because the Spanish came here in what was it, 1520 something?
well, in the
Um,
Western United States, I wouldn't say it took hundreds of years. It didn't take. It actually, in fact, didn't take long at all
right, right, right.
because it was like because it was done mostly through trade with, for example, the Spanish, or settlers
Yeah,
moving westward.
right.
But it went from agrarian culture, I believe, to because like the reason why horse culture was so prevalent in the Western United States is because of buffalo herds.
Right.
Obviously, the
Yeah,
plentiful
that
amounts of
makes
buffalo
sense.
herds. So I could understand why there would be a reason in Arito, Arito America to like not have that because I don't think the buffalo herds went that far south, for example.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
so I guess it would make sense there, but I guess I was asking like separate from the Spanish, doesn't matter the time period. Obviously, horses and cattle were not there prior to the
Mhm.
Spanish, just like they weren't
Right.
in the American West. But did they develop a culture that was around horses that included like to a point of almost like, well, it's not almost, it was like purely like in a spiritual form, even where like they saw horses as like a core part of their society.
You're talking about the native tribes in Arido, America?
Right, yeah, like Arita or Oasis America.
Um, as far as I know, that didn't really happen. Like
I
what
gotcha.
happened was the Spanish came, they conquered the area, but they faced like really hard resistance to, um, I guess like civilizing that part of the country, right? Like
Right.
they were nomads. They didn't want to, what's the word I'm looking for? Integrate, I guess. And it took them literally 100 or to 150 years to integrate those tribes. They were they taught them agriculture. They gave them cattle. They tried to like evangelize them.
Right.
Classic
Yeah.
Spanish.
Religion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that took 100 years plus, and by the time that happened, they were not really their own tribes anymore. They just became, quote unquote Mexicans by
Right. I
then.
think something I do remember reading about in, I think it was like during my undergrad, was that with these kind of Mesoamerican cultures, it happened with native cultures as well, but like with the Spanish, especially when you had like missionaries, they
Mm-hmm.
would try their best to teach Christianity to these cultures, but they did a
Yeah.
horrible job of doing it to the point where like the the natives would know they needed to come to church on Sunday, and they knew that they needed to like do what's it called, mass, I guess, but
Mm-hmm.
they didn't exactly know what it was for, just that they were supposed to be doing it,
Right.
like, and that apparently supposedly was supposed to bring good things. And that is like a very
Mm.
interesting concept to where like they know they're supposed to do it because this is what they're getting told by the missionary, and they believe it, that like this does something positive, but they have like no
Right.
actual concept of like Jesus Christ, Catholicism,
I mean, there is
processes
actually
of the church, where it came from, stuff like that.
one of the missionaries that came to Mexico, and he wrote in one of his letters that the people in Mexico didn't really care about
Right.
Catholicism, and that if the and when he was there, it was like 100 years after conquest, right? And he said at that point in time, he said, if we leave, they're gonna forget about Catholicism in the span of 50 years or less,
Yeah. And that's really
pretty
easy to
much.
say too, because like they didn't honestly, forget about it is even like a weak word for it, because like they hardly knew what it was in the first place, like from
Yeah,
what we
yeah.
can tell,
I
like
mean, they
they knew
still
that there were
didn't.
practices and they'd incorporate practices, but like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
actually understand
And
the
also,
gravity behind them, obviously, because they were taught
right.
poorly.
Yeah, and also they had really strong beliefs in their gods, right?
Of course, yeah.
They
It's like strolling
didn't.
into ancient Egypt and being like, "Hey, have you heard of like, I don't know, have you you want to become a Presbyterian?" It's like, a
And they're
what?
like, no, fuck you. My god shoots lasers from their eyes.
Yeah, actually, it's like, I've got a god that wears a sheet that shoots lasers out of his eyes. What do you mean you want me to send you like $100 in like a cup of my bathwater? What are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, so over here, also something that happened is that they started changing or twisting the significance of religious celebrations that the natives had and turned
Right.
them into something that was like Catholic, like Day of the Dead, for example, right? That was a pre-Hispanic celebration that was transformed into being a more quote unquote Catholic, right?
Right.
Catholic thing.
Now, do you think
Mm.
that it was a lot like the religious practices, where like they just kind of adopted them, like native peoples just kind of adopted what was brought to them by missionaries because they thought it was neat? Because like in the sense of like a little bit of backstory for chat, when it comes to a polytheistic religion like these were,
Mm.
it was super common, like incredibly common, to meet a new culture and that culture tell you about their favorite god, and you to go, That's sick. That sounds important. You know what? Occasionally I'll throw a bone their way, just in case.
Right.
So I can imagine, because like that's the way that a lot of cultures reacted, especially in this period, in this area, to Jesus Christ, for example. It happened a lot in the Caribbean, for example,
Right.
where it was like, we believe in multiple gods. Oh, sick. Jesus Christ seems cool. We'll put him next to our statue of Quetzalcoatl, is like just
Right.
an example. I don't know if that ever happened, but like that is how they legitimately felt about it. They were like, oh yeah, we got the sun god Quetzalcoatl, we've got the rain god, we've got the god of corn, and then we've got Jesus Christ. They're all they're
Right.
all
Right.
they're all doing this stuff together. They're all together. Like they're friends. Um
Right. Right.
so
Right.
thinking about it that way, do you think like those religious practices that were, twisted, and don't mean that in a negative connotation,
Mm.
but were twisted by missionaries from Catholicism, do you think they were just kind of like they were with the practices we were just talking about, where it's like, I don't really get the importance of this, but it seems important to you, and that seems kind of neat, so I guess we'll just take it. You know what I mean? Like we'll add it into our stuff. Like, do you think
Well,
that's how it probably
I
went?
feel I feel I mean, can't say for sure, right? But
Right.
I think the Spanish knew what they were doing because when they went to a settlement that had temples, right, like pyramids,
Oh, the Spanish
they
definitely knew what they were doing. I meant more of like
oh
from the
yeah, yeah.
native aspect.
Oh no, no, but hear me out.
Okay.
So what they did was they dismantled the pyramids. Sometimes not completely, right? They just took some stones from them and then built a church on top of them, right? So these pyramids were a place of religion for these peoples, and the Spanish put churches on top of them. So kind of like symbolism, it's some sort of symbolism, right? That okay, so this is the stronger religion. You have to do this now, kind of, I guess. And a lot of people back then, I'm assuming they first of all they just went with the flow, and in the span of some generations, they just didn't know about the old gods anymore, right?
Right.
Because of the push of the Catholicism that was being force fed to them, basically.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm, mhm.
All right. I think that's all the questions I have for this slide. Are we ready for the next one?
We can go. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Right. So in this one, you can see a big ass map and a lot of lines and colored areas, right? So on Arido America, you can see the names of the tribes and their area of influence.
Right.
And then on Mesoamerica, you can see some of the area of influence of other civilizations, right? The
Hmm.
brown one, that's the Mexica, or also
Gotcha.
known as the Aztecs. The purple slash pink one on Yucatan, that's the Maya area of influence. All the teal ones, those are like independent city states. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah. Then the green ones, we have the Tarascos in the north, and then another tribe in the south, and yeah, it's just a bunch of different city states and areas of influence of different civilizations, basically.
I gotcha.
Yeah, most of the civilizations in Mesoamerica were city states, and there were really little instances where they made like cohesive alliances. Like I think the only ones I can think of were the Mexico Tenochtitlan one, which was Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan. Those are three cities um, that are around Lake Texcoco, and that's the quote unquote Aztecs, right? They made the alliance, and they started quote unquote conquering all the other city states. But
Right.
it was a different sense as in Europe because they were not really like making them part of their territory. They were just subdued as a
Pay
vassal state,
fealty.
right?
Made to pay
Yeah,
fealty.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, they had to pay tributes, like monthly tributes, basically. And we have actually pieces of paper made by the Mexica that say, okay, we need these many barrels of honey, these many pieces of feather from the quetzal, blah, blah, blah. Like they
Right.
ask each city state for a different thing
Right.
because they were like specialized in whatever. And when the Spanish came, everyone was pissed at them because they were the ruling ones, right? So they
Right.
allied themselves with the Spanish to overthrow the Mexica.
Not
And then they were like,
realizing the level of warfare that
yeah,
would be brought. Yeah.
exactly. And then they were like, oh,
So
fuck.
to put into context for everyone else, this is not purely a Mesoamerican thing. This was common among just about every other culture outside of developed Europe. In the sense of, well, and China for the most part, East Asia. It was very common in many parts of the world, multiple cultures. Almost, it was more common than not. Where China and Europe were actually outliers in this, where war was never seen as like a murder kind of thing. Well, I mean, like, death and injury did occur, but it was not like in the sense of like you have two armies fighting to the last. That was never what it was. It was almost always a
Yeah.
skirmish. It's almost always some kind of border skirmish where you and your bros leave your field, you get your spears and your shields, and you go out to the field to go fight your neighbors, and you throw some spears. You guys like kind of like jump towards one another. You might capture a person or two, and then that's it. You go home. It's not
Yeah.
like pushing in to completely burn down cities.
Right.
And the result would be, as Yariko just said, would always be like, all right, like, you lost. We're going to leave you alone now, except for like twice a year when we want you to pay taxes. And then,
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
if a group got tired of paying taxes, they were like, all right, we're fighting again. Like, that's how it went.
Yeah, pretty much.
Something that was completely different with Europe is that it developed to a point where all out war became the norm. So when you have colonization like this to other areas, this can be seen in Africa, this can be seen in North and South America, this can be seen in Australia, it can be seen in just about every part of the world. All of these cultures are met with these colonizing European powers and are attempting to do the same thing, where it's like, ooh, you're gonna have to like do our little game a little bit, so you have to pay us taxes or we pay you taxes, and the Europeans come in and just slaughter everybody. And it gets to the point where they go, oh, fuck, like, this is no longer a fight for superiority. This is a fight for survival. Like, it is completely different.
Yeah, it took the Mexica a while to realize that was the case.
Exactly.
And everyone else, right?
And that is a big reason why when you hit this time period from the 1400s up to like the 1800s, that is why Europe seems to have this huge lead globally when it comes to arms and defenses, like military technology and prowess. And that is because while everyone else spent all this time fighting for simple fealty and superiority, Europe was fighting for survival. Just straight up, just trying to absolutely eliminate one another. I'm late, obviously, but why is Yariko Sun in 160p? Because sadly, I'm not a corpo and don't have $1,000 to spend on a bunch of stuff. So we have to use Video Ninja, where you have to like blow up screens to a crazy degree. So yeah. Essentially, like, Yariko is sharing a video of her model to me, and I have to slap it on here with a color correction. So that's why Yariko looks like she's out of like a 1940s Christmas claymation.
We're trying our best, Chad. We're trying our best. Yeah.
Yo! Good timing. Welcome in,
Lovely.
Raiders! Welcome in, everyone. My name's Hara Rae Sol. I'm an Egyptian peregrine sun goddess. I do history, variety, and war thunder streams. Thank you for the raid, Cass. How was your stream? How are you doing? Thank you so much for the raid. It really does mean a lot. I like the vibe. I like the vibe too, dude. Okay. Have you covered everything you wanted to with this slide before I ask my question?
Pretty much. Oh yeah. I also want to mention the ways of these city states, the way they govern is different in some parts. Like, for example, in Tenochtitlan we had an emperor, right?
Right.
Um, but if you go to the south to the Mayan states, in Calakmul, for example, they had kings, and in Chichen Itza they had a council. So
So this is a question
yeah.
I had, kind of minor, but like, what is the differential between a king and emperor in this instance?
Well, I guess what would you say that's different? Because I've always been curious about that. I always felt it was kind of the same thing,
Yeah,
personally.
it's kind of
Um,
like it's kind of like talking the difference between like a Kaiser and like an emperor and like a king and a
right.
shogun. It's just kind of like it all
It's kind of
means the
same but
same.
different word.
It's
Yeah.
just a different word for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
guess that like that leads into my question.
Mm,
How does geography for a lot of these cultures affect their city states and societies, and kind of like did topography cause differing forms of government? Like a prime example that I used, like I just said, was the Japanese
mm,
shogunate, which during a similar period you would gain power through owning land that produced rice, which was the main
right.
staple food. And if you
Right.
controlled the means of production on rice, that means you had power, which means you suddenly had a military. Um, so like, what
Hmm.
kind of decided who was a king, who was an emperor, and who was a council, and why were those choices made instead of that being like them all being kings and emperors?
Right. For example, I can tell you some about the Maya, right? Because we know some stuff. They
Right.
did like to record the names of their kings. And apparently, from the archaeological uh, stuff we have found, their kings were like a family kind of deal, like your son is going to be the next king and his son's going to be the next one, like a
It's
dynasty
it's a
kind of
blood
relationship.
lineage.
Yeah, blood lineage. Um, some other city states, they had, instead of being the nobles, or the king in this case, right, ruling, they had a high priest. And it was also a blood lineage kind of thing, but it was the
Right.
high priestess in that case. And in some other cases, like for example in Chichen Itza, it's believed that there was like a league of important people that was the council that ruled over the city. Why they had this league, we have no fucking clue, right?
I gotcha.
Like, there's no way of knowing, because most of the stuff we know, it's being recorded in big stones. We call them estelas. That's where they recorded like big events, like a battle, defeat or a victory, change of the dynasty, power kind of thing, foundation of something or some religious celebration. Um, but why they were doing certain things, we don't really know. They did use a type of paper back then, but obviously those most of those most of those things
It's
were
hard for those things
burned
to
by
last.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also that, but most of those were destroyed by the Spanish.
Right.
So yeah.
So in that case, I was actually my next question was going to be about Chichen Itza and the council compared to other cities. We obviously don't know why they had it, but do we have any like histories that these two cultures were
Right.
ever at odds? Because like you think of like, I mean, if you're a people that are made up of a council, like that
Right.
obviously represent your division. I would imagine if that's I'm feeling more of a republic, democratic, early form of democracy kind of form. I feel like I'd be pretty
Right.
upset if all of a sudden we were subjugated by somebody that had an emperor and had to pay
Right.
tax
Right.
and
Right.
fealty to an emperor and listen to what he had to say.
Well, the thing with the Mayans is um they were so far from Mexico City, and they were separated by the Istmo de Tehuantepec, right? The Tehuantepec Isthmus, which is that
Right.
little space in between the Mexica and the Mayan territories.
Right.
That's like really high mountains, mountain ranges and shit, and really thick jungles. So there were and also we have to remember there were no horses, right?
Right.
So all the trade they could do was on foot or hand cart or something like that. There were no horses, no cows, no like domesticated big
Maybe a little
animals.
bit coastal. Some stuff coastal.
Maybe some boats. I mean, the Mayans did have a god of the seas, so I'm assuming, or
Right.
we assume that they did some seafaring. Not we don't know to what extent because they didn't really have big ships. They had more like canoes and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Um, but there was a point in the Mayan area where the people around Chichen Itza and Mayapan, which is another city, they convinced all the lords from the other city states and they formed something called the League of Mayapan.
Right.
And that covered most of the territory that you can see in that map.
I gotcha.
But I think it lasted like 200 years or
I mean,
300 years.
for an early civilization, that's still pretty good.
Yeah. It lasted something like that. And then, political strife and probably issues with resources because the Mayans were very predatory on their resources. And this is another problem in the Yucatan Peninsula, right? Because agriculture there is kind of complicated because of the geologic characteristics of the peninsula itself.
Right. I was just thinking in like of a sense of like likening it to a like a Greek city state. You kind of have
Right,
like Athenians, which like prided themselves on democracy. Meanwhile, their neighbor Spartan, just down the fucking road, was all about a warlike society led by a king.
right.
So I was just wondering, like, those, they often clashed on those two ideals, and I was curious if we have any records of something similar. But that would make a lot of sense that they have two different ways of governing when they are
Right,
separated by something like that. That makes a lot of
right,
sense.
right. I
So
mean, we also had evidence from other places that had, like religious kind of rulers, like high priests and stuff in the central Mexico area. Like I think the Mixtecos and the Zapotecos were kind of like religiously inclined. Um, but like a council kind of thing or a democracy, quote unquote. I don't think any in central Mexico had something like that.
I gotcha.
Right.
So I guess my next question would be: so we talked a little bit about boats and seafaring. Something that is
Right.
very common in like ancient Mediterranean. It's kind of unique to the Mediterranean because of the way the Mediterranean is,
Right.
and kind of how it affected the development of the cultures that surround it. But
Right.
colonies were something that was common even in that period, where
Mm,
say like Athens, for example, Greece often, I think Corinth might have been one of them, where they
right.
like it was as far as like Italy. Like Greece would Greek Grecian ships would fly sail themselves up the
Mm,
Mediterranean to Italy and form a city state. That would be a Greek colony. I was curious if there's ever like any existence or no known existence of say like I don't know someone up north taking out a boat with a group and just sailing, taking the coastal currents down south and forming themselves a small city state. But
right.
also still in a way identifying with their old city state.
Mm-hmm. Well, honestly, as far as I know, none of these cultures had quote unquote colonies.
Right.
Mostly because since they were like city states, their projection of power wasn't. They couldn't go that far. The ones that did have more projection of power were the Mexica, and we see there's like small territory below the Mayan territory.
Hmm.
and that was ruled by the Mexica. I mean, not ruled, quote unquote. It was more like subdued. They were vassals, and at one
Right.
point they were like, "No, we don't want to pay you fucking your fucking tributes. Go fuck yourself." And they sent an army, and they were like, "Okay, we're gonna pay again."
Go fuck yourself. Everyone shows up. All right, you know what? Maybe. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, pretty
um,
much. But
I
I
guess
don't know if I could classify that as a colony because
in a
like the
way,
way
I guess
they
you could
yeah
argue,
yeah you could
but
kind of say like okay yeah some to some extent, but not like the specific way we see a colony right now, right?
right, right.
Like I wouldn't
Um,
even say that all that territory was still like part of the quote unquote Mexica Empire, right? They were just
mhm,
vassals of them. As soon as the
gotcha.
Spanish came, a bunch of them were like, "Oh no, yeah, we're gonna help these guys because we hate those fuckers."
So I guess moving on to the next question, considering that city
Right,
states were much more individualistic,
right.
um, did they happen to have like any kind of like uh original like origin myths? Like I know that's kind of like it's a really bad way to put it, but unique, as I guess the best
Yeah,
way to put it.
no,
Unique origin myths, kind of like Rome's Remus and Romulus, in a
right,
way.
right, right. Well, I don't know much of like specific of every culture. I can tell you a bit of the Mexica and the Maya one.
Hmm.
Like each of them had their own kind of deal. The Mexica, for example, we know that their origin myth was that they were told by a god that they had to found their city where they found an eagle eating a snake on top of a cactus.
Right, and I think that's the
Like
one that everyone knows because it's what's depicted on the Mexican flag.
that is correct, yes. And when they went to, according to the story, they were roaming around for 200 years or something like that. And then they found that place in Texcoco. And that's where they made the city, right?
Right.
Um, but if you check the gods they had in all of these cultures, everyone was sharing gods. Like the Mayans and the Mexica had similar gods too. Like for example, for the Mexica we had Quetzalcoatl, right?
Mm,
The Mayans also had him, but with a different name. He was just called Kukulkan. And
interesting.
then, for example, we had also in the Mexica, we had Tlaloc, which was the god of rain. We also had the equivalent in the Mayan area, which was called Chak. And what else? That pretty much a big number of gods, right? Um,
Right.
Different cultures in like the Teotihuacanos also worship Quetzalcoatl, and we can see.
Were were there
Mhm.
any more origin myths besides the one with like the falcon eating the snake? Like,
Right.
were there any more that we knew of?
I don't honestly, I don't know.
I gotcha.
I do know that there's a book called the Popol Vuh. That's for the Mayan, and I actually own a copy. I read
Oh,
it when I
okay.
was in high school, and it talks about the creation myth mostly, right? Most of these civilizations they believe that the world was in a constant cycle of being created and destroyed, right?
Right.
And when I say most of these, it's like the Mayan believe this, the Mexica believe this, the Teotihuacans believe this, the Mixteca, the Totona, like all of them believe that kind of, like they had that similar belief. And for most of them, if not all of them, they believe that they were on X number of like reincarnation of the world, and in order to make the world keep going, they had to do they have to feed the gods with human blood. That's why they did the human sacrifices.
Right. Right.
Mm,
So moving back to the map behind us and the groups
Right.
of peoples that we're about to talk pretty in depthly about,
Right.
kind of like in the sense of like ancient Egyptians, where you have like um Ozymandias referring to Ramesses II, because of the Ptolemaic period,
Right.
or cities like the Sun Temple being known as Hierapolis, which is also a Greek
Right.
word. Are these what these people would have referred to themselves as, like these names and these places? Or is this just like a modern Spanish infused interpretation of what they would have called themselves?
Well, we know the Mayans refer themselves as the Maya, right? Um, we also know that the Mexica refer themselves as the Mexica.
Right.
And for some of the other civilizations, we don't know how they refer themselves as. We know the name the Mexica gave them. So, for example, the Olmec, uh, that's a Mexica name, and it means people of the place with latex or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And their language would have been different from the city states that they're referring to.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
so like
The
they are
Olmec language
quite
is different.
the original names the peoples would have called themselves for the most part are actually completely gone. Like we have no
Probably,
clue.
yeah. Probably, yeah. Yeah, like for example, the Totonacas, that's also a word in Nahuatl, right? Most of these
Right.
people spoke Nahuatl, which is the Mexican language.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's both
Yeah.
sobering and depressing, quite honestly, in a way.
Yeah. I mean,
All
but
right.
you gotta go back to the time the timetable, right? And we're speaking about thousands of years before. Like
Yeah,
some
of
of these
course.
civilizations didn't exist at all when the Mexica rose to power. So like
Exactly.
they saw Teotihuacan, but the city was abandoned, and it had been abandoned for almost like 1,000 years when they started building Tenochtitlan. And actually, Teotihuacan is just like I think the name. Um, let me see. What did it mean? It's a word in Nahuatl that means the place where the men transform into gods.
I'm not gonna lie, that sounds okay. What the fuck?
Yeah, no,
You're
because
going from
it,
like, oh yeah, people of the lake, people of this one fruit, people of the coast, people of corn, and then people where men become gods. All right,
yeah,
just all right,
yeah,
man.
it's because that place was very. It's a really shocking place. I don't know if you've seen the Teotihuacan pyramids,
Mm-mm.
like in pictures. They are fucking massive, right?
That's
And
crazy.
we can see evidence of their influence all the way to Chichen Itza. I think Tikal also has some influence from Teotihuacan.
And which culture was
Everywhere
this
in
again?
central. Teotihuacan is like in central Mexico, like really close to where Tenochtitlan was located.
I got you. And this is not like
And
Mexica, and this is not where
no,
Tenochtitlan
no,
was.
no, no, no. The Teotihuacans they
That's crazy.
they rose to power around 300 uh, BC before Christ, and then they fell out of power, or they fell into like oblivion around 600 AC,
Do
like
you think they
after
gave
Christ.
themselves that name, or do you think everybody else gave them?
I mean, everyone kind of felt that that place was like a somewhat related to the gods, right? Because
Okay,
the
so they
pyramids
saw like
were
that territory itself as like a central religious center.
right, 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 yeah, yeah. Uh, Imagine Atlantis, basically. Like they felt that this civilization was like super advanced and was highly influential to everyone else. So like
Interesting.
everyone felt like this place was like, oh my god. Um,
It's
and
crazy.
yeah, they fell at 600 DC, and
I'm
the
trying to
Mexica
think of
rose to
like
power at
I'm trying to think of
600
like
years away.
historically like what that's even comparable to, because like it's not like Because it's a city-state, but it's not like it hasn't conquered the other cultures around them. It hasn't, like, it's not a part of a larger nation that is seen as like an important state, kind of like a Vatican. It's just straight up a completely different culture where everyone around them universally looked at it and went, these guys are really fucking cool. Like, that's like literally all it is. Except, like, I mean, you said you compared it to Atlantis. I want to make sure you understand, Mario Sack, for example, like mythical places, like how mythical these places start to feel. While it is mythical, unlike Atlantis, this is a very real place. Like, with like very real artifacts and like very real structures that still exist. Right. So that takes it that 1 degree higher, where it's like, oh, it's probably not just some Greek philosopher fucking spitballing for funsies in his book. Right. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Just straight up, everyone's like, yep, that's the men of the gods over there. Yep, that's them.
Yeah.
They died. Yeah, they got wiped out at some point too.
Yeah, and in southern Mexico, like in the Mayan area, the Olmec, those were kind of the Teotihuacans of that area, right? The influence of the Olmecs was seen around the Mayan area and also like northern parts of Mexico, but they are thought to as being as one of the mother cultures in Mexico. The Olmecs.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Is that everything for this slide?
Yeah, we can continue.
So I think we're actually at a good pause point. We're gonna take a quick 5-minute break so we can run some pre-roll ads. So Yariko and I can get a little bit of a mental break for just a moment.
Yeah.
And when we get back, we're actually going to be delving deep into the individual cultures. We'll be starting with, what is it? Is it the Olmec themselves?
The Mixteca. No,
oh, it's the Mixteca. Okay, so we will be starting looking at an actual deep dive of the cultures when we get back from our little 5-minute break.
Yeah.
So don't go anywhere. This is like your little chance to get up, go get you another little snack or another drink, refresh your water, stuff like that. And I hope to see you guys back in a minute.
Yeah.
And don't get stuck on the door. That is your fault, not mine. Right. So now we're kind of like focusing in closer on starting to begin looking more in depth at cultures. The first is going to
Mm-hmm.
be the Mixteca,
Mixteca.
Mixteca.
Yes. There you go. Yeah. So remember when I said that some of these cultures we didn't know how they call themselves? I lied. We do know. So the Mixtecas, that's a Nahuatl word, but the Mixtecas call themselves New Savi. That's how they
Mm,
call themselves, and it
gotcha.
means people of the rain, right? Um, they were one of the most enduring cultures in Mesoamerica. Their time of influence spans from 1500s BCE to literally the conquest of Mexico by the Spanish at
Right.
1500 CE. Um, we have found evidence of trade between them and the Olmecs. The Olmecs are in Tabasco. They are they were living like side by side with the Zapotecs, which also call themselves the people of the rain. Why? I don't know, man. But you
They just
know,
both thought it was cool.
yeah, I guess. And most of these peoples in the Mixteca area, they had city states, and they were very religious in a sense. The areas were divided kind of like in the like North Mixteca area and the South Mixteca area. In the north, they worshipped the god of rain more, and in the south, they worshipped a god of fire.
Okay.
Um, which is like why I don't know, man, but that's how it went. And politically speaking, there was one warlord slash king that managed to consolidate power in the southern area,
Right.
and yeah, they just they just kind of did their thing over there. Yep.
They just kind of that history, they just kind of did their thing over there.
Yep.
So I guess I would ask. So like typically when it comes to like gods,
Mhm.
especially when you're making your most prominent gods, obviously what you choose to be like your main god is going to be typically like what your society holds most important. That's just
Right.
obvious. You know, sun
Yep.
was very common because sun gives you warmth. It grows your crops. It does all the important stuff. So I guess like rain and cloud could just show that like how important it was for rain to them.
Right.
Um, did they ever have any conflictions with the Zapoteca for claiming the same kind of like name, or was it more of like a brotherly kind of thing where it's like we're neighbors, so obviously we'd be the similar thing?
Yeah, I think they were kind of okay with them, right? Unsure. I don't. We haven't seen many like archaeological evidence that they were at odds with each other that much.
Right.
Um, like besides the normal, kind of like quarrels, quarrels with your neighbor,
Hmm.
state wise, but I don't, I don't really know honestly. Like I do know that there was a time when the Mexica conquered area, and they were, and that happened after one of the big kings died. Like he passed away, and the Mexicans were like, you know what? We're gonna take your territory. And yeah, and then the Spanish came in and fucked things
And just
over, but
ruined everything, yeah.
pretty much.
So I guess a question I'd have to ask here is
Hmm.
typically what would trade goods kind of look like between these kind of cultures?
Right. So what we have evidence of trade is like pottery was a big one. They also made like really intricate like pieces of jewelry or stuff, like
Right.
designs and stuff. A lot of religious implements. We've seen temples, and they had like specific types of pottery that they would make and put in the temples.
Right.
Um, they traded jade. Jade was very important to them. We'd seen pottery from the Mixteca all the way to Tabasco in the Olmec area. We've seen Mixteca stuff in the Tenochtitlan. Um, so they did trade a lot, and mostly pottery and obsidian goods, jade. They had some gold.
So it
Um,
wasn't really like utilitarian stuff. Like we're not
right.
talking like
I mean,
it's
obviously
not a trade of
resources too,
like
right?
I'm sorry.
Obviously resources too, like food or wood or whatever, right? Like that. That's
Yeah,
also
like
something that
you would
they
have brought
traded.
across like a general thing, but it's not like I don't know. I don't know. Like for
Mm-hmm.
example, like Egypt not having lumber, so they trade gold for lumber, for example, as they would to Mesopotamia. So I guess
Right.
there wasn't a whole lot of that. It's just kind of like this region does this jewelry a particular way and it's pretty, so we'll trade you our jewelry that we do a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. No. I mean, most of the civilizations in this area had access to similar stuff, like similar resources. So
Right.
usually when they traded like manufactured goods, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
either raw materials, uh, food, or manufactured stuff.
I
And
gotcha.
yeah,
So you
pretty much.
mentioned that religion is extremely important to the Mixtecos. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
what did they do that sets them apart from others in this regard? Like why, like was not everyone incredibly religious? And if so, like
I
what
mean,
made them more religious than others?
everyone was incredibly religious, right?
Right.
Um, uh, but we have found like more evidence that these guys had like specific uh ways of like practice religion, right? They also like they believed that the caves were important to some of their gods, and they went to the caves and they had like rituals and stuff in the caves.
I gotcha.
They developed special tools like special braziers. They had specific rites. They used tobacco and stuff. They did human and animal sacrifice, um, which was pretty common in all Mesoamerica.
Hmm.
And they also on the pottery they made, they always showed like religious topics or religious themes on the pottery, usually.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
all of my questions for the Mixteca.
Okay.
Um, we're gonna move on to the Zapoteca, the guys that we said
Right.
had really cool names. I would also like to note
Mm.
rather, for chat specifically, make sure you're looking at the pictures for these specifically. You'll notice pretty quickly that the statues and the architecture and the pottery, as Yariko was talking about, are vastly different. Like this is something because like I had to go through and look through these slides to prepare some questions for her.
Mm.
And that is something that you notice, like, for example, look at the Mixteca right now. We're moving over to the Zapoteca. Like, look at how different not only the architecture is, as we can see in the bottom, but comparing to the top right up here with these masks, compared to the sculptures of the Mixteca down on the right here behind me, look vastly different. Like, not even close to being similar.
Mm.
Which is kind of something really interesting to look at because you think, I mean, we just talked about it. The Zapoteca and the Mixteca were
Mm.
neighbors that called themselves the exact same thing, so they had a lot of shared culture, and yet
Yeah.
most of their artwork is vastly different.
Yeah. 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 It's pretty like, and we can see some similarities, right? Like if you check the the little figurine to the right, and you could scroll up, you see that the other figurine that they have, which is a different god, right? Because for the
Right.
Mixteca, it's the god of fire, and then for the Zapotecs, is the god of rain. But they
Right.
are in the
So this
same
one
same
right here,
pose,
this is what she's talking about,
right?
chat. This one right
Yeah, yeah,
here is fire. This one is rain.
yeah. And they have like similar elements, right? They have like this funny hat, similar pose. Very different looking though.
Yeah, that's what I
And
was gonna say. Is like the pose is similar, so it's like obvious that denotes that they're a god, but like
yeah,
it's just like even just base art style is just vastly different.
yeah. They were just like next to each other, basically. They rose to power around 700 BCE, and they also fell around the era of the Spanish conquest because of the Spanish. Um, and one of the pictures in the center, the one literally in the center next to the map, that's from an archaeological site called Mitla,
Right.
um, which is believed to have been a necropolis, right?
Hmm.
And that's where they were burying like important people. Um, and in the other cultures, like for example the Mexica, when you talk about the afterlife, uh, when people die of natural causes, they go to Mictlan, which is technically that place. I don't know.
Interesting. Very
It's interesting.
literal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I am looking at, I'm sure there's more to this than this corner that we're being shown, but that's kind of been a lot of the things with, like, especially the stepped pyramids, is like all I can think of is like, oh my God, it must be so hot on all of that concrete. Like all of that flat stone. Like, you guys
Mhm.
don't know, like, stone and concrete especially have a really bad habit of absorbing sunlight and really
Right,
holding on to it. That is the importance of
right.
having grass lawns.
Mhm,
So yeah.
mhm. Yeah. I haven't been to that area of the country. Bless you, bless you.
Sorry.
Sadly.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
you're
not
fine.
sure
You're
what's
fine.
going on
Don't
with my
worry.
throat right now.
Don't worry. Um, but yeah, the Zapotecs, they they were called the town of the zapote, which is a plant, right? It's a tree. Um, and I let me see if there's like a name they gave themselves, but I don't think so. Nope. Anyway, um, yeah, they were very similar to the Mixtecos, mostly because they lived in the like next to them. They had a lot of influence from them, and we can also see influence from Teotihuacan in their buildings.
Right.
Like specifically that in Mitla has some motifs that can be seen in Teotihuacan.
Okay, that
Um,
that actually answers my question, because one of the questions I had was if architectural styles ever mix.
right. Yeah,
Um,
no, they did. They did.
I'm
Yeah,
wondering
and you will see
if you
some of
know
that.
of any comparisons. So, for example, a lot of people don't know this. Everyone knows what the Roman Colosseum is, but a lot of people don't know this about the Roman Colosseum. Is that the point of the Colosseum was to be a display of who the Romans considered to be their predecessors.
Right.
And it was kind of like appealing to them by imitating their architectural styles. So, for
Right.
example, one of the layers of the Roman Colosseum used a Greek architectural style. The next used Tuscan. The one after that, Ionic.
Mm-hmm.
And then another Corinthian.
Mm-hmm.
So all the different levels with their pillars, for example, and their frescoes and things like that. The architectural styles were different for each level. I'm curious if
Mm-hmm.
there's any buildings or structures that, like, obviously there's stuff that they take, like, influence from, like ideas from. But I wonder if there's like
Right.
an actual like clean cut where it's like here's ours, here's our neighbors, like combined into one building, like just straight up like shown.
Right. Well, I don't specifically know if there's like something like that clear cut.
Right.
Like I can tell you that we can see influence from Teotihuacan in these buildings, right? Like
Right.
in most of the Zapotec buildings, especially like the motifs, and there's also murals painted in some of them, and they
Hmm.
did use a specific type of mural that had like a red background, and then like some scene depicted, and that's very specific to Teotihuacan. And we see those murals also in the Mayan area, like Bonampak has one, if I believe. Palenque also has one that's really, really detailed, very cool. And I think I don't remember if it was Tikal or Calakmul that also have murals like that inside the temples and the tombs. So we see some of that Teotihuacan influence, right? In the
Right.
architecture and in the arts. Also, the Mixtecas and the Zapotecas were also known for their metalwork. Um, they didn't really work bronze or copper because it was not something they could exploit back then. I mean, there are some bronze, but they were just like starting to develop those metals when the Spanish came. So we were cut short of our bronze age basically.
Right.
Um, but they did work gold a lot. They were renowned with gold working and gold item crafting. And actually, if you go to the Mexican Anthropology and History Museum, you will see like really, really intricate designs in gold that were made by the Mixtecos and sent to Tenochtitlan basically as tribute.
So that's something I'm curious about. Obviously gold is a rare metal worldwide. So
Right,
naturally most cultures looked at gold as something to be extremely valuable.
right.
But that makes me wonder, like, was it to a lesser degree with this culture? Like, obviously, gold was important, otherwise, it wouldn't wear it as jewelry.
Right.
But I honestly, now that I've asked this question, I'm curious as to what I'm really expecting for as an answer because it's a pretty vague and contradictory question.
Go for
Um,
it.
but I'm curious if like there was any other extra like importance put upon it, or if this was like even the opposite, maybe where it was actually seen as just so common um
Right.
that it didn't hold a similar importance as it did in like say Europe where the Spanish were literally frothing at the mouth to get it.
Right. I would say gold was important, but I don't think it was seen as the most valuable metal, right?
Right.
For most of this culture, jade seems to
Yeah.
be
Jade
more
seems to be
important.
pretty
Yeah.
widely held high.
Yeah. Like for example, the Mayans, I believe it was in Palenque. They one of the rulers had a mask made of jade, right?
Right.
Um,
I'm
and we
assuming
see a
that's
lot of
one of the ones that
jewelry.
we're seeing right here to my left.
Oh no, that's like a little pendant thingy.
Oh, is it just
That's
a
yeah,
pendant? Really? Okay.
yeah. That's a little yeah. It's like a small thingy.
That
Um,
is like
which
some really
shows the
intricate.
craftsmanship.
Yeah, the like how intricately crafted these things were.
Yeah,
Like if
and
this is just
also
a
like
pendant, like the amount of
yeah.
detail on it is insane. I really thought it was a full sized mask.
No, that was like a tiny one. And also the pottery. You have to have a really high level of skill to be able to make something like that with
With a lot
pottery,
of
right?
precision as
Yeah.
well. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, so that is our Zapoteca.
Yeah.
Next is our Totonaca.
Right, Totonacas. They were located in the area known as Veracruz. They rose to power around 100 CE and also fell when the Spanish came in 1500s.
Oh, give us one moment,
They're
Yariko, sorry.
What's that? Oh
Yo,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
welcome in, Raiders! Welcome in, everyone. My name's Hara Rae Sol. I'm an Egyptian paragliding sun goddess. I do War Thunder variety and history streams, and today we're doing a history stream on the history of the Yucatan and Mesoamerica with Yariko-san, who's our presenter today.
Yep.
Thank you so much for the raid, Mother Eugen. I hope you had a great stream. Thank you for the raid. And welcome in, Raiders. Hope you enjoy your stay. As you were saying, we are just beginning talking about the Totonaca.
Right, right, right. So the Totonaca, their name means three hearts. Um, they and the name comes the from because they have three different city states that were like
Oh,
in league, right?
okay.
So they were independent but in league, same kind of culture and stuff, and they were called Totonaca by the Mexica, basically.
Right.
Their principal god was the god of the sun, and then they also had a goddess of corn who was the sun's wife, and they did human sacrifices for the god of the sun, but for the goddess of the corn they only did animal and herbs and flower sacrifices because she didn't like human sacrifices.
That's so weird. I wonder where that
It's
came
funny, right?
from.
I mean, people in this area are funny. There's also a goddess in the Mexica culture called Xochiquetzal. That's kind of like that goddess of corn. She also didn't like human sacrifices, technically.
Interesting.
So it's like you can see similar gods here and there. Um, let's see. They also had like a really important god, which was like a god of thunder, basically. Uh, and what else can I say? They allied themselves with Cortez to fight against the Mexica, like a ton of
Right.
other cultures.
Do
Yeah.
you think do you think religion had anything to play with that? Because that was something a
No,
question I didn't realize was that like they worship the sun god and the corn goddess at the same time. And you mentioned that
most
the
of
corn
this
goddess
they
didn't
did. Yeah.
accept human sacrifice, so it actually made me wonder like, well then do
Mm.
they if they don't like human sacrifice and everyone else does they create conflict? But obviously it
No, I
doesn't
mean
because they still
they
sacrifice
also
people.
yeah they still basically the way these cultures work is that they had a bunch like in their temple complexes they had a bunch of different pyramids, right?
Right.
And each pyramid was like a temple dedicated to a specific god. Um, and they only like, for example, the Mexica had the Templo Mayor, right? Which was they had a sun and a moon pyramid next to each other. They were similar
Right.
in size, but they served different purposes. And they also had smaller temples for different gods. One interesting thing here with the Totonaca is that that pyramid you see there, you see it has some windows, right?
Oh, let me move out of the way. Chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those windows it has 365 windows, one for each day of the year.
How convenient. Wow, that's actually really sick, actually.
Yeah, yeah, like it's kind of wild that they knew how many days the year had, right?
Right, yeah.
which
And
is
they not
which
only
for
that,
an
but they were
ancient
like,
civilization is.
you'd
Mm.
honestly imagine being like on 364 and being like, all right, I'm done. And the guy's like, actually, new memo came out. There's 365 days now. And it's just like, ah!
Fuck. Yeah, yeah. As far as I remember, they believe that 5 days of the years were like the worst days of the year or something like that. I don't remember
Interesting.
specifically why. I just remember that, and
Oh,
I did that other gods,
Yariko's
right? That's
turning into a
called.
TikTok meme.
Oh my god, it's kind of choppy. What's that?
Yeah,
Hold on.
you're very laggy.
Oh my god, same. Wait,
Uh,
hello, hello.
I think we might be having some Discord issues.
Ooh, yeah, I think my
Okay.
internet. Is it good? I think it's back. Yeah, it's
Are we
back.
good?
We're
Okay,
back.
cool. Let's go.
We're back.
We're so back. All right.
We're
So
so
as you were
back. So
saying,
yeah, I've been to that archaeological site. I actually climbed that pyramid.
oh my god, it's back again.
No.
Okay, let's restart the call real quick. Hello?
Hello. Hear me?
Okay, let's restart the call real quick.
Yeah. All
All
right.
right.
Let's see if it works. Hopefully it
Hopefully
works.
it stays fixed.
Right. All right. So, as I was saying, I actually been to that archaeological site. I climbed that pyramid all the way to the top.
Interesting. How many
Mm.
how like strenuous was it? We talking like regular
It
hike
is
or were you
kinda.
huffing and puffing by the end of it?
Uh, well, I mean, you kind of huff and puff at the end because the steps are like higher than normal
Mhm.
steps, right?
Yeah, it looks like they
Yeah.
are from that picture. It looks like it's higher than a regular step.
Yeah. Like, and this is something that happened in most, if not all, of pre-Hispanic pyramids.
Right.
It is believed that it has like a religious significance, right? Because it has like the way the reason they built these pyramids was to get closer to the heavens
Right.
and to be elevated, right? And the significance of the steps being hard is because it's hard to get elevated, right? It's hard to climb to the heavens. So that's kind of like the reason why they are like that. And it is a bit strenuous to get to the top, I will say. Like you kind of huff and puff a bit.
I do like that they kind of make you work for it. That is pretty
Yeah,
sick. So,
yeah.
while we're looking at this though, do you want if you don't mind, could you explain the other four pictures that are currently on this slide? I'm assuming the
Yeah.
top one is the corn goddess. Um,
Uh, the
is
top
that
one, let
correct?
me check because I do not remember
I
specifically, but I
gotcha.
can check. I
Either
can check.
way, looking
Mm.
back at the other two slides that we just got done looking at, this one looks like the god of fire. At least a similar
Mm-hmm.
art style. So we're not like super
Right.
wacky. Although the funny little
Right.
figurine down here going like hee hee and like waving
Yeah.
is really interesting. He's like
Yeah,
so
that's how they depict them themselves,
actually looking at
which
her
is kind
hand,
of funny.
that's corn, so the bottom one is definitely the corn goddess.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be. The top one, I think it's like a high priest or something like that.
I gotcha.
The one in the center, that's a ritual that they still practice nowadays. Like if you go to that area, you can see them do that, and
It's a
they
form
are
of ancient
known.
American football. It's a football.
It's it's not.
She's
Shut up.
holding she's holding her hand out. She's like, "Go long,"
Oh
while
my
she
god.
gets ready to throw the football. They just used to use corn.
Oh my god. No. It's called the Voladores de Papantla, right?
I gotcha.
And let me. Basically, the way that works is they have this really high pole, right?
Hmm.
Um, and fuck, how tall is it? It's like
It's at least six people length. Looking at just this.
no, it's five people, right? It's just four,
No.
four
I'm saying
guys.
if you
Oh,
stood six people on top of each other, it's at least
oh
taller
no
than
no
that.
no! It's like I think it's like 20 or 30 meters high, like something like this. You can.
Wow.
I'm sending you a picture right now, and sometimes even higher than that. But basically, what they do is
It's
like
like
they tie
fireman's ladder height.
kinda, yeah, I think potentially,
It's like three, maybe four stories.
yeah, something like that. Um, 37 meters apparently. But
Wow.
basically, what they do is they have that little square thing at the top, they all climb at the top, right? They all climb
Right,
at the
right.
top and sit there, and they tie themselves from the feet, like from the ankles, and then they start spinning that thing, and then the rope slowly unfolds, and they fall all the way to the ground. It takes like a couple minutes. While they are doing that, the guy at the top is usually like singing and doing like a chant kind of thing.
Right.
And normally the guy at the top is like standing. Like this is how it starts. That's a picture for you there. And like each of the four dudes, if I remember correctly, they are supposed to like symbolize um, each of like the cardinal directions. You know, north, south, east, west,
Interesting.
and yeah, yeah. Because we also had gods that were like we had a god of the west, a god of the east, you know, that kind of stuff.
I gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
So who's finally the last creature that's behind you?
Oh, that's just like let me check. Let me check
They have
because
a
I
very
don't remember.
bony ass.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's like I think it's a depiction of a god, but I don't remember which god.
Right.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I don't know much about them because I didn't grow up there.
Completely
uh,
understandable.
yeah,
So I guess while you look for that, I have a specific question. So
go for it.
like we've repeated multiple times during this so far as well as the last one, a lot of people in world history, it's just how humans work. Place
Right,
importance of the gods reflecting on how important things are in their lives. But we've looked at
right,
three cultures already, and I think I remember looking through other ones of these cultures as well. Despite being on the coast, especially in the Gulf of Mexico,
right.
it's surprising seeing the lack of important fishing gods.
Oh yeah, actually, I forgot. Yeah, I was gonna
Like
mention
the
that.
Greeks, one of the part of the main trilogy was Zeus, god of the
Mhm.
sun, and then Poseidon.
Right.
So like it's interesting seeing like in Jupiter and Neptune with Rome. The only reason like Egypt didn't really have an extremely prominent fishing god is because they were
Mhm.
more agricultural based because they just depended more off the river than they did the coast. But it's
Right.
interesting that like for example this area specifically Totonaca is almost
Mhm.
entirely on the coast. So
Yeah.
like it's really weird that they're like, yeah, we're more of a corn people
Yeah.
than
I
seeing like a
think
fishing god.
one of the reasons is because even though they're on the coast, like that area of the country, there's a mountain range, right?
Right.
Like these archaeological sites are in inside valleys, and going
Oh,
to a
that will do it.
coast, yeah, going to a coast from there is
Is
kind of tricky.
difficult. So okay.
Yeah, it is difficult.
Well, then that's the perfect
Um,
explanation. It's geographical.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I don't think they have the means of transport fish all the way from the coast to
Most
the
likely
cities,
not.
right?
Yeah, through a mountain kind of range. Yeah, a lot of it would
Yeah,
run.
yeah. And specifically, just thinking that they didn't have horses, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
All right. Are we ready to move on to the next slide?
We can go to the next one, yeah.
Okay, so this will likely be our last slide of the night, and then we're going to be taking questions. So
Hell
get your
yeah.
questions ready. All right, now honestly, I feel like I made fun of the Olmeca, but like the big rock heads, I think are some of the most well known Mesoamerican
Oh yeah,
structures
very
outside of the
famous.
pyramids. But I'll let you start.
Very, very famous. So the Olmeca, they were known from 1500s BCE to 400 BCE. So they disappeared a long, long time ago, right?
Right. And you can kind of
Their
tell
name.
just by looking at the
Mhm,
central picture of their
mhm.
pyramid how less ornate than it is than the one that we just looked at.
Right, right,
The
right.
Totonaca.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, they it's believed that these giant heads were depictions of the rulers, basically. So a king or some noble person, and I think the biggest one is, let me check, but I'm pretty
The
sure
funny
the
thing
biggest one is
is,
like, what's that?
of the pictures you provided, the one on the right is looking like
Mm.
pretty neutral. The one in the middle is looking like grumpy as hell, and the left one looks like he's busting the fattest fucking nut. Like he's just like, oh.
He's screaming.
Either that or it's
Okay.
like me when I stub my toe, like real bad.
Right. Yeah, no, there's a bunch of these, and I think the biggest one is 40 tons, right?
Wow, that is, yeah, that's heavy.
Which sounds like kind of like, okay, it's heavy, but what's the deal with that, right? Like
Yeah,
maybe they just made them there,
I mean
but
they're not
no,
hollow, are they?
no, they're not hollow. These are
They look
like
like they weigh
solid
way
pieces
more than
of
40 pounds.
basalt. No,
Oh,
dude, this is basalt. You see the picture in the middle? You can see
yeah,
the size of the people next to that thing, right?
yeah.
These are made of basalt, and they were actually transported from a place in Veracruz, which is
Mm,
very far
gotcha.
away from where they finally placed them.
Right.
Um, we have no fucking idea how they did it because remember, no
With
horses,
how
right?
with
No
how round
cows.
they are, it probably just fucking
Yeah,
rolled them.
they just probably just like made a like a sphere looking thingy and rolled it and then finish it off
Yeah,
on
the
its
thing is,
side,
like, with
right?
how rounded they are, like, you could just, like, tie a rope, a lot of
Yeah,
cross sectioning rope around it and just roll it. Yeah.
definitely, yeah. Mhm.
Yes, Fry,
Uh,
these are the subcultures that we're talking about. Yes.
yes, we are talking about subcultures. Yes, they, as many other cultures in Mesoamerica, they did have um what's the word? The ball game, which is like a football of sorts.
Right. The one with the hip.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to
It is
swing your
believed,
hips.
pretty much, the hips don't lie, baby.
They don't.
It is believed that they had a theocratic form of government, so like the ruler was a high priest kind of thing. Uh, they did have a polytheistic religion, and they usually venerated deities associated with nature, right?
Right.
We don't know much because their writing has been lost and we haven't managed to like decipher it. Um, but like their style and the way they build things can be seen in the Mayan area, specifically like some of the shapes of the pyramids and the way they adorn them on the sides and that kind of stuff.
Right.
They developed two calendars, a solar calendar for agricultural purposes, and they also developed a 260-day ritual calendar, which is like a lunar calendar, I believe,
I gotcha.
for religious ceremonies. And yeah,
So, I guess my main question when looking at this slide, um,
mm,
so they're known for the people of the rubber region, which is obviously rubber trees.
right, right,
And
right, right.
rubber, for a lot of people that don't know, because I didn't know this until I was too old to not know it, rubber comes from tree sap.
Yeah,
Um, so what were ancient Mesoamerican cultures using rubber for exactly? Because like when you think of rubber, like the big moment that rubber becomes popular on on the world stage is tires.
right.
Around like the World War I, World War II era.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to what
Well,
rubber was being used for here. Obviously balls, probably for their game. Um,
actually, you know that company called Goodyear. Well, the Olmecs made it. Nah, I'm joking.
Little did you know,
uh,
this face on the right behind me is actually the face
yeah,
of Henry Ford.
yeah, exactly. No, actually, they use rubber to make the balls for the ball game. That's pretty much the
That's pretty much
extent.
it.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow,
they didn't have any other use for it back then. We don't have any recorded archaeological evidence of any other different use
that's
besides
crazy.
finding the actual balls they use for the ball game, right?
That's interesting.
um, yeah, but not much else known. Also, I mean, I don't think they vulcanized stuff. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty difficult to do at this time period.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's a funny thing with the Olmecs though. There have been some American uh, wackos that claim that the Olmecs are actually African American, and
And they're judging it, I'm assuming, solely off the look of the heads.
yeah, 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 and
Ugh,
we regard them as crazy people here, but apparently
that's.
there's a
I
big
never
number of
thought that I would
followers
ever
of that
hear.
theory.
I would never thought I would hear of New Age instead of Black Israelites. It's Black Mesoamericans. That's crazy.
Dude,
That is
it's
certainly
very funny.
something. Wow.
It's very funny. It's very funny, but if you actually look at the people from that area of Mexico, they do kind of look like the Olmecs, right? Like they do have those factions,
Yeah,
and
and
they are
I can
certainly not
see it.
African American.
Right. Yeah. All right. So I think that's everything for the Olmeca, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you
All
have
right.
questions, feel free to ask.
So that you actually answered most of mine this time around.
Hell
So
yeah.
I think that we're gonna call it for the slides for tonight here. This is actually the perfect stopping point. We're exactly halfway through.
Hell yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and drop the TV. And we're gonna take some questions. So, chat, if anyone in chat over this entire time, if you have any questions that you've been writing down, we are open to hear about it. I would be more than happy to hear Yuriko a little bigger. Ignore her floating. Um, and her boob jiggle, her really adorable and Loki a little hot boob jiggle. Anyway, so yeah, do we have any questions for me or for especially our guest Yariko?
Yeah, go for it, Chad. Ask away. If I know, I'll answer, and if I don't, I'll make something up.
Yeah, make it up. Don't say I don't know. I don't know is for
Yeah, that's
cringe
for
lords.
pussies. Yeah.
Yeah, just say oh, you got a question from Mario. What is the most common diet type that you see with Mesoamericans?
Deity types. Well, I mean, we know that the cult of Quetzalcoatl is pretty famous across the land.
Mm,
We believe that the Teotihuacans kinda. I mean, they didn't start it, right? Because Quetzalcoatl was already a god when the Teotihuacans, like, rose to power. I see
right.
what you're doing, Hara. I see what you're doing.
What? No, no, no,
Making us,
no, no,
you're
no, no, no.
making us
I'm not doing anything
shorter.
shady.
God
I'm not doing anything
damn
shady. Leave me
it.
alone. Leave me alone. It's my stream. I'm allowed to be the
I'm
tallest here.
taller than you.
Yeah, how tall are
Anyway,
you?
181
Yeah, well, I'm 182.
centimeters.
So, what a
That's
coincidence.
BS.
What a
BS.
coincidence.
BS.
It's
Um.
no. Are you implying I'm a liar? That is a horrible thing to call a goddess. That's insane.
Well, do something about it.
You will
Anyway.
get cancer.
Oh
I
my
will. You
god,
are
let's
within
go.
cancer range.
Oh
Anyway,
my god, you're gonna hit me with the cancer rate. Let's
I'm gonna hit you
go.
with a cancer beam. Yeah.
So let's say, so yeah, the cult of Quetzalcoatl is something that's generalized, especially after Teotihuacan. We can see evidence of it practically everywhere. Like if you see Chichen Itza, the castle, like the big pyramid in Chichen Itza, if you go there during the, I think it's the summer equinox, you can actually see a shadow. Well, not shadow, but as the sun sets, you will see the snake descending from the top of the pyramid
Oh
all the
right. Yeah, I
way.
heard about that.
It's really
That
fucking rad. I've
that
been
sounds
there
sick as
like
hell,
2 or 3.
honestly.
It's super
Okay,
cool,
you
dude.
have to
It's
know that like when you pull shit like that, like the priest doing that was like this is gonna be sick, and then you have like
bro, yeah.
some like pre-civilization like peasant that has made their mecca there, and they're seeing that snake and they're just like shitting and coming their pants at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
holy fuck, it is real. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that is
No,
actually like,
that
but
shit's fucking banger. I've
yeah,
seen it a couple times and it's always pretty fucking impressive.
and
Like
that's why
it never
like
gets old.
when you like it's kind of easy to look back at like people like this and be like, how ridiculous, like a fucking corn god. And then like
Right.
you have to realize like your limited knowledge of the world around you, and then you see like with that limited knowledge, seeing sick shit like that, like
Right.
I'd no wonder, man. Like
Right, right.
I'd have to stock like 30 pairs of underwear. I'd be fucking shitting my pants every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, and you gotta remember also, like the for example, the Mayans, they did astrology. No wait, astrology, no, astronomy. Astronomy, that's the
astronomy,
one, right?
yeah.
Yeah, they
Astrology's
did astronomy.
horoscopes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, they did astronomy really, really crazy shit. Like all their temples are aligned to something, right?
Right.
Um, and they recorded dates really like specifically following the stars and all that stuff. They were really advanced in astronomy, and they used that to project power onto the less knowledgeable peoples, right?
Of
Like
course.
because they knew when the eclipses were going to happen, right?
Oh, so they were like, okay, we know when the eclipse is gonna happen, so like, I don't know, let's say it happens, like the next one is definitely planned for July 20th. We've known that for like
Yeah,
six
yeah,
years.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna act like the week before, like, uh,
Oh, we need to sacrifice like 20 people because
we
if
need to
we don't,
sacrifice like 20 people that all conveniently I owe money to. And if I do it enough, the great snake's gonna come out of the temple, and it's gonna be fucking sick, and it's gonna show why I'm cooler than everyone else. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
totally
yeah,
get that. But yeah, like honestly, that's why like it's the same thing. Like when I first started learning history, you look back and be like, "What idiots!" Like I forget what
yeah.
exact war it was, but there was like a battle. I think it was between Alexander the Great and someone else. I think one of the part of the Persian Empire, and like they were both fighting, and a meteor. It was either a
Mhm,
meteor or an eclipse happened over the battlefield, and everybody stopped, looked up, went,
mhm.
"Oh, that's bad," and then everybody stopped fighting and left. Like, just got up and left. Like they were like both sides were like, "Oh yeah, that's really fucking bad. We're done here. Like we're just
Mhm.
going home. We'll see these guys tomorrow." Cuz like in that like religious system, like with the limited concept of the world that they knew, like that was a bad omen. Like if the sun's getting covered, which does not happen often, it's a bad fucking day. Um
Mhm. Yeah,
so like
yeah.
naturally, like both of them thought it was like, uh-oh, eclipse. That means we're gonna lose. So they both just packed up and left. Which is
Mhm.
really, really funny to think about. So
Yeah.
Fry asked, how long did this culture last? I'm assuming he means the Olmec. If you want to
The
flip back to that
Olmecs.
real quick, yeah. Because I think she said at
I
the beginning.
mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think they lasted around 900 years.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
900 years, and
That's not
they
an
stopped being
insignificant
a
amount of
thing.
time.
That's a lot. That's longer than what modern Mexico has existed or modern USA. So
Right, exactly, by 4 times.
yeah. So what happened to them? We don't really know. They just kind of disappeared. But the
Uh,
influence can be felt in the region, right?
right. You can see it in architecture and things like that.
Yeah, architecture, art, etc. Yep.
Cuisine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anju asks, al pastor or lingua?
I
Lingua.
mean, I like both. Lengua, it's tongue, cow tongue.
Right, right.
Yeah, very tasty.
Isn't al
Barbacoa
pastor
usually.
just like beef strips?
No, al pastor is made with pork.
Mm.
Um, but it's very tasty. I do love
I
al
don't know,
pastor
man. I know it
tacos.
tastes good. I shove it in my mouth. That's the
Yeah,
extent.
yeah, it's fucking banger. Let's
Okay.
see.
Our
So
next
I see a
question.
question by Oto-san.
Yeah. The Otis one. You can go ahead.
Yeah. Do you know if the giant natural spheres stones in Jalisco had any influence in local religion? I don't think so, actually. It's regarded that they were created by natural phenomena, like not by any native population. I believe that like they knew they existed, right? But I don't know if they influence religion in any way. Hope that answers the question.
Okay. The next question is from. I'll get Perfy's real quick because I seen it. No, we have not talked about the Tolteca yet. That will be next week.
No, yeah. Next.
Um, so we have a question from Stunov. Wanted to ask a
Right.
question about the Mexican Empire and its political consolidation because it did have a rich political history after independence. Revolutions, the Cristiadas, Emiliano Zapata, wars with the U.S., French intervention, the Dirty War, etc. But I guess I want to ask specifically is what is Yariko's favorite era of Mexican post-Columbian history? And
That's an interesting question. I would say that probably the Mexican Revolution is one of my favorite eras in Mexico history, mostly because it shapes modern Mexico ideologically, right?
right,
Um, and we get the modern constitution was made in that time. We had to fight a bunch of foreign powers trying to like meddle in Mexico and do shit. We had to. I mean, we couldn't fight the American invasion in that time, but we kind of like flipped the finger to them, so it was funny. What else? I don't know. It was interesting. It was an interesting time, and a lot of stuff happened. Mm,
right.
right.
Do we have any more questions? Any stories from?
I will
It's from
also
Mario-san.
say that there are two Mexican Empire times. I don't know if you knew that, Sunop, but there was one made by Agustin de Iturbide after the independence, and then there was the one where they brought the Habsburg family that we executed here.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, so the next question's from Mario Sack. Any stories you can remember of the crazy shit that Mexica would get up to?
Uh, elaborate. Any stories you remember of the crazy shit that the Mexica would get up to? What do you mean, like real things that
I guess
happened,
just
or
like
like
mythological stuff.
mythological
Like I
stuff?
guess like the Trojan horse. It's I guess like something I would imagine.
Right. I mean, there is one story. I don't remember specifically which god was it, but um, I think it was something like, for example, Quetzalcoatl is regarded as the god of knowledge, right?
Right.
Uh, he gave knowledge to the people. He taught them how to do a bunch of things, and there was another god that was taught to create the humans, and I think just hear me out, okay? I think he actually like he
Okay,
masturbated and
it
he
cannot be weirder
masturbated
than ancient Egypt's. He masturbated
right
in what?
and come on corn, and that's how fucking humans were created. Some bullshit like that.
Fuck me.
Yeah, yeah, we're cum people, Hara.
So are we. Still not as bad as ours. It's bad, but it's not as bad as ours.
Yeah, but, I mean, there's a bunch of stories, right? I don't
You
remember right
like
now.
pyramids. We like pyramids. You like
Right,
calendars and astronomy. We like calendars and astronomy.
right,
You like your god coming on corn. Our god likes coming in their own mouth. A lot of
right.
similarities despite being across the
Yeah,
world.
there's a lot of cum being shared. I
I
will
don't know if
say
that's the phrase I
we're
would
gonna
use, but sure. I don't know if I
we're
would
gonna
talk if I
touch.
would I don't know if I would explain this cultural exchange as cum swapping, but you know what? Sure. I guess if you feel like it, go ahead.
Yeah, we're gonna touch more on the Mexica later, so don't worry about
Right.
that one. But they did some crazy stuff. They were an interesting culture, and they did kind of like appropriate gods from other places.
As everyone seems
Also,
to do.
yeah. Also, another funny thing, if for the Mexica, the way you died determined where you would go after in the afterlife, right? So they had
Hmm.
like different heavens, quote unquote. The most common one was Mictlan. When you died, you go to Mictlan, but you had to traverse 9 hells before you get there.
Sick.
Yeah, and that trip will take you 4 years, I think, if I remember correctly. There's one hell that has shards of obsidian that fly to you and rip your fucking skin off. There's another hell where a jaguar fucking opens your chest cavity and takes out your heart, etc., etc.
You
Funny
guys like
stuff.
to draw it out. We're just like way heart, no, banish. Like, good lord.
Yeah, funny stuff.
So our next one is from Anubis, which is what is the most common indigenous language still spoken in Mexico today?
Well, there's a ton of indigenous languages still spoken here. The biggest ones are Nahuatl and Mayan.
Which makes
But
sense. Those were
besides those
the two
two,
most
yeah,
dominant too.
yeah, pretty much. And besides those two, there's still a lot of other more smaller. Like there's also still Mixtec and Zapotec still being used in their respect like the specific areas. If
Right.
you go to the north in Arido America, there are still some tribes there that still speak their languages. Not super common because they're like small, really small towns, and some of those languages are dying out. But the biggest ones right now, Nahuatl and Mayan, those are still taught. You can also like they're they are technically considered official languages in Mexico. I mean, and you can actually find stuff translated in Mayan and Nahuatl. Like you can find books in Mayan and Nahuatl and stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So this will be our last question for the night. If you have any more, make
Right.
sure you save them for next week. Our last one is
Yeah.
from Stunov. Yariko spoke about visiting the Chiapas. Um, he's heard that
Mm,
these are the last remnants of these Zapatistas. And they wanted to know
right.
if you had had any contact with the very politically and ethnically diverse people in that area.
Well, I mean, I've been to Chiapas, but I didn't go as far as the where the Zapatistas are located. Right? They are like they were when I went there. They were hiding in the jungle in like close to Guatemala, and there was a truce between the government and them.
So
So
are they just like
the
one of the like an uncontacted tribe?
no, the Zapatistas are a revolutionary army that lives in
Oh,
Chiapas. Yeah.
sheesh.
It's
Is
kind
it
of like
against who?
the government.
Like which nations?
Mexican government.
Oh
The, like
wow.
yeah, it's because the Mexican ruling party after the Mexican Revolution stood in power, right? And it was kind of like a dictatorship disguised as a democracy.
Right.
And we managed to get rid of it up until the year 2000, actually. So they stood
Wow.
in power for 70 years. And they were kind of ruthless back in the day.
You kind of have to
Uh,
be. Yeah, wow. That's crazy.
yeah, like there was time, I think it was in the 60s, 1968, right before the Olympics in Mexico City. Um, a bunch of intellectuals and students and just civilians mostly. They organized some demonstrations because they didn't like some stuff the government was doing. I don't remember the specifics. Some
Right.
some shenaniganery was happening, right? And they
Right.
had a peaceful protest. Like they were just like doing a demonstration,
Hmm.
and the government sent a killing squad and massacred them.
Holy
just
shit.
just before the Olympics, and they just did that
Wow.
because the president at the time felt that people from the world were gonna come to Mexico, and he didn't want them to see that we had a fucking demonstration on the streets, right?
That's crazy.
So he massacred
Literally
them.
every, like, Olympics has one. That's, like, common.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So it's I think the death toll is like 15,000 people, something like that, um, or more. Some people say like 50 or 60,000 people. Yeah,
I
that's a
was
lot of a massacre.
expecting, like, 30. What the fuck do you mean 15,000?
No, it's a lot of people died. Like it
Holy
was.
shit. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah,
god.
it
I thought this was
was.
like one event. Now this is like a massive. Oh my lord.
No,
Holy
it's because
shit.
they apprehended a ton of people, and
Good
yeah, no,
lord. It's horrid.
yeah, it was kind of wild.
Well,
Um, yeah, and years later, like this happened like in the early 90s, or late 80s, I think. The Zapatistas, they were a Marxist revolutionary army that
right.
rose in Chiapas, which
I
is
gotcha.
the southern state, right? And they were fighting because they felt that they they were like that area of the country was being ignored, and that's kind of they were kind of right. Like the south of Mexico is very underdeveloped compared to central and north Mexico, right?
Right.
um Mostly because there were no up until like the 90s there were not really big roads connecting the south of Mexico to the north of Mexico, so development was kind of tricky.
Right.
um yeah, and they felt like the economic activities that some of the states in the south were being exploited by the states in the north. Like, for example, in Campeche, we have all, well, not all the oil reserves, right? But the oil industry of Mexico, most of the extraction is done in Campeche. But
Right.
that money doesn't stay in the state. It goes to Mexico City and then it's distributed to the country, right?
I gotcha.
And just like a lot of people in Campeche were not really happy with that because, well, the development, you couldn't feel it in the state, right? It felt
Right.
like we were very backwards compared to other cities. Like if you see, for example, Mexico City with all their skyscrapers and shit, you go to Campeche and the highest building has like, I don't know, 7 floors, 7 stories, something
Right.
like that.
Oops.
Oh my god, are you dying? Are you okay?
No, I'm just covered in blood. Um,
Fine, fine. That's hot.
thanks.
Uh, but yeah, like they felt that like the ruling class was kind of ass, and they were fighting against that. They did some, I would say you could call them like terrorist attacks in some
Right.
places, and they're kind of like their headquarters were in Chiapas, and they were hiding in the jungle for years. And
Hmm.
actually, it's kind of wild, but one of the guys from System of a Down, I think, or Rage Against the Machine, they live over there with them.
That's probably rage, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because System of a Down's Armenian. So that'd be kind of
Right, right.
weird. I mean,
Yeah,
same
yeah. No, because
message,
it's
but
Rage, right? Yeah, yeah, I think
opposite
it's
side of the
Rage.
fucking world, so.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's
All
Rage.
right. Well, I think that's a good point to end on. We're going to go ahead and rate on out, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me, Ariko. I had an amazing
Oh, my
time.
pleasure. My
A big
pleasure.
reminder that we are going to be back tomorrow, not tomorrow. We'll be back on Friday at 8 p.m. CST. We'll be back with more War Thunder and our partner push. So make sure you guys come back and hang out. If you want to finish the second part of this presentation, we'll be back at the exact same time next week. Same day, same time. 7 p.m. CST unless something changes, which hopefully it won't. But I'm going to go ahead and rate us on out. Let me find who we're going to rate out to.
Hell yeah.
Honestly, who's still on? Let me double check this person's still streaming.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, they haven't been going long. Okay, we're gonna raid Jolene. You guys don't know Jolene. She is a sports VTuber. One of the few that I've met, and she is really cool. So you guys go have fun with her. She loves Pokemon. She loves talking sports. So if you like talking sports, she's your girl. And she's playing Fight Night, which I don't know what that is. But that sounds pretty fucking sick. So I will see you guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I will see you guys on Friday at 8 p.m. CST. And then I will see you guys again on Saturday at 8 p.m. CST. Both will be War Thunder. Yariko, you're free to join us if you wish. Oh my god, she's ending her fucking stream. God damn it! Okay, we're rating somebody else. God damn it. So close. God, that sucks. I really wanted to rate her too. Alright. We're gonna raid Porcelain Maid then, just because it's convenient.
Right.
And I will see you guys back on Friday next week. Make sure you come back so you can catch the back half of this. We'll be focusing on more of the she did not just raid me. She did not just raid me. Oh my god.
Oh my god. Let's go.
Fucking rip. Oh my god. Jolene, I was raiding you. Oh my lord. Alright. Well, thank you for the raid, Jolene. Welcome in, everyone. My name's Hara Rae Sol. I'm an Egyptian Peregrine Sun Goddess. I do War Thunder variety and history streams. Today was our history stream. It was on the history of the Yucatan and Mesoamerica with Yariko-san. We did our first half. Our second half will be on Wednesday. We'll be on Wednesday at 7 p.m. CST. We'll be back on Friday at 8 p.m. CST with our partner push. So please come and hang out. I would love to have you guys there as we try and hit partner. We are really close. I got the notification today, just letting you guys know that I hit 75 average viewership. But I'm afraid it doesn't quite count because they don't count raids because Twitch is fucking stinky. So we will see you guys back here on Friday, but that means we're really fucking close. We just need a little bit more of a push. I love you guys a ton. Thank you again for the raid, Jolene. If you guys haven't followed Jolene, please go raid her. She's awesome. She does sports stuff. She's really fucking cool, really kind. We're running out of time, so I will see you guys on Friday. Bye, friends. Love you guys a ton.
Bye-bye.
Okay. God, we ran out of time. Shit. I'll see you later, YouTube. Make sure you guys check out the new short that came out.